Their work will be remembered as one of the greatest moments of this planet.
Mr. Scout. I know you're still weighing whether to return to Lumen. But the Mark I've come to know is happy.
Hello, is anyone there? Is the board on? It's Marquez from Macro...
What you all did was one of the most painful moments in the history of this company.
What the hell?
But the four of you have become known as the face of Severance reform.
Okay, so we're not in trouble?
I don't think so. Milchick said we're famous.
All of us equally, or one of us is like the star?
Now if you feel that you can't go on.
So what the hell did you guys see up there?
It's not our world up there.
And your life is filled with much confusion.
My Audi's wife died a few years ago. Except the woman is Miss Casey.
So what are you gonna do?
I gotta get her out of here.
Mark, your Annie said she's alive.
This is obscene.
I just want to be sure.
And your world around is coming down.
Why did you do this? What is this all about?
Do you know something about Gemma?
Mark, there'll be no honeymoon ending for you.
Their work will be remembered as one of the greatest moments of this planet.
You don't value them. You fear them. We fear no one.
I'm tightening the leash.
If we let this happen to Miss Casey, who's gonna step up when it happens to us?
Now. Goodbye, Marquez.
Wait!
My name is Miss Huang. It's my first day here as deputy manager. Mark W.
Why are you a child?
Because of when I was born.
How'd you get in here?
Jesus. Open the door.
Step off, fuck out.
Do it.
No!
Now.
No!
Do it.
No!
No.
No! No!
And welcome all back to another Severance Hour here on the channel. And tonight we, of course, are going to be diving into all things the Severance 2 series finale and, of course, looking ahead to Season 3. And we want to hear from you guys in the chat. What are your Season 3 predictions? How do you think the next chapter of this story is going to unfold? Where will Season 3 begin? Where are Mark and Helly running to? Will they potentially find some new departments we've never seen before? How exactly is this story going to continue? And that should be a very fun discussion. There's a lot of places where Severance can go, I feel like, considering where Season 2 ended. It seems like there's many different avenues they could take to where they take the story next. So it'll be interesting to see where they go, where some of these characters end up going. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to discussing some Season 3 predictions with everybody. And, of course, my awesome co-host, PM Philosophy. Welcome, PM.
Thank you. I'm really excited. Yeah. Every time you mention like running through the hallways, it reminds me that that's where we're at. It's insanity. Where are they going? I mean, really, how can this end, right?
It's going to be interesting to see where they go. One thing that I've always found very interesting about Severance, and the Severed Floor in particular, is their just blatant lack of security. They have no security on this Severed Floor. I mean, we've seen time and time again, all it really takes is for them to have to subdue usually just Milchick, and then they have completely free run of the place. And this one, they had Drummond on the Severance floor at the same time because of Cold Harbor was going on, but even he got neutralized super fast by Brienne of the Goats. So that's one thing that's always been very interesting is there's always just a blatant lack of security going around this severed floor, where even in season 1, they only had one head of security and it seemed like he had nobody working for him. It was just Grainer. So that's one thing that I think Mark and Helly might have in their favor, knowing that the security isn't super, super heavy on the severed floor, at least from what we've seen. So yeah, who knows? I mean, who knows how deep into the bowels of Lumon can they get before they get stopped? I mean, they seem to be, in a precarious situation. I know they're not going to be able to evade forever, but I imagine they're going to be able to get pretty far before they get caught. And my hope is they end up finding some new departments, completely new departments that we've never seen before. We know there's more out there. I mean, of course, we only saw MDR, optics and design, and the GOAT people up until this point, but we learned in this finale there's another department, the band department, choreography and merriment. So I think it's only a matter of time before we start seeing even more departments get unveiled. So I think it would be a good way for them to start season 3 off if they run in so deep into the severed floor, further than they've ever gone, and they find some new and weird departments. Maybe there's something even weirder than the GOAT department out there.
Yeah, and you know what? Sometimes at the beginning, I was very critical about Lumen and their infrastructure. Like,
Yeah.
how do you not have enough security? How do you not have enough cameras, right?
Yeah.
But Ben Stiller and the creator, Dan, explained that that is on purpose. That
Okay.
Lumen is a huge corporation with lots of money and a lot of success, right? They throw galas. However, they wanted it to be just like corporations in the real world, where some of the stuff that they do doesn't make sense. Some of their choices don't make sense because they are a massive corporation and yet they have to wheel around equipment. They don't have enough staff. So it is by choice. So when I think about it that way, it does kind of make sense. Lumen, while they are masterminds, they're just not the brightest, right?
I mean, it's a good point. I mean, if they're trying to mimic, real world corporations, real world corporate America, who does have infinite resources. I mean, they have all the money in the world. It's certainly not a problem of them affording security. But sometimes these big corporations, when they get too big, they tend to make mistakes on the lower levels, things that they don't pay attention close enough to. So, and I mean, hearing it explained like that, yeah, you can kind of understand why maybe they wanted to go this route and not have security on there, have that be one of those things that they maybe have overlooked. But yeah, I mean, I think Mark and Helly, because of that, I think Mark and Helly are going to be able to probably get pretty far into the inner workings of the severed floor before they get caught or come up against any kind of resistance. So yeah, I want to see where this goes. Where are they going to run to? What are they going to find? I mean, what other kind of weirdness is waiting for us on the severed floor? I mean, they have goat sacrifice, for crying out loud. What else is out there for all we know?
They have to have a department where they are getting rid of these bodies. So now we know, and we got to see the department full of tile where they were doing this thing with the goats. And it was really, what was really disturbing was that when you look at the walls, they did have that tile that a butcher shop would have.
Yeah.
Where,
Yes.
right? So that
Yeah.
was for the goats. Now there
Yes.
has to be one where they're getting rid of these bodies. They said it was to usher a woman, right,
Yeah.
to Kier. So there has to be a morgue, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all. I mean, if even when Mark got or pretended that he was sick when he called into work, and Milchick said, "You're a priority employee of Lumen. You should be under our care," which indicated to us that they have an entire medical wing, essentially. So yeah, I mean, if they have an entire medical wing, I imagine they probably have their own morgue and everything else that goes along with that. So yeah, there must be some kind of department that disposes of the bodies. And who knows, maybe not just goat bodies too, for that matter. Maybe there's some human bodies they need to discard every once in a while. It certainly seemed like they were planning on killing Gemma when they were done using her. I imagine they would have had disposed of her body in some manner. which would have been easy legally speaking, considering she's legally already dead. So at that point, all they got to do is get rid of her body, and they're kind of in the clear there. But yeah, I mean, yeah, they got to have other departments like that, maybe their own kind of medical facility, their own morgue, as you mentioned, stuff like that. I mean, I imagine there's so much more on the severed floor that we haven't even been close to getting introduced to yet. I mean, why do they have their own band department? Why do they have a choreography and merriment department?
They do so many celebrations, right? It makes sense to me. And I love the band. I know that a lot of people were not fans of the band, but I love a marching band anytime. So for me, it's like super exciting to see that. And they're still one of my favorite parts, right? I want the entire outfit. I want the entire band outfit. But they do throw a lot of like little celebrations where they will work dancing into the celebration, like the waffle party, right?
Yeah.
And if you're doing something as strange as the waffle party or as strange as this little ensemble with the band, it makes sense that they want them to have an entire department because this is like top secret, right? When the waffle party came out, we were all thinking, where do they get these dancers, right? Do they hire them
Where
from
these
like the
dancers
local
come
strip
from?
club or something? Because their outfits were not matching like the hits that they were wearing. So, but now it all makes sense. There is a choreography and merriment department. And if I was in any, that's the department I would want to work in.
The choreography and merriment, like out of all, and that's a good question. I mean, chat, let us know what you think as well. Of the departments that we've been introduced to up until this point, we have MDR, we have optics and design, we have the goat people, and now, of course, we have choreography and merriment. Which department, if you had to choose one, if you had to work at one of these departments on the severed floor, which department would you guys choose in the chat? Are you choosing MDR? Are you crunching numbers all day? Are you choosing optics and design and potentially, which is like their R&D kind of department? Or are you going with the goat people? Are you an animal lover? Maybe you want to go with the goats, or who knows, maybe you are a music lover and you want to go with the marching band. So it's the band for you. Definitely choreography and merriment. That's the one you choose out of those four.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we also have wellness, Sevi. So remember, you could also
True.
work for the wellness department if you want to
Yeah.
like give the any some therapy. That is also
There
an
you
option.
go. That's also an option. The wellness department too. Yeah. I mean, those Miss Casey sessions were very kind of ASMR inducing, very relaxing. Put me right to sleep. I could listen to that and just fall right to sleep. But yeah, what about you guys? What about you guys in the chat? What department would you choose if you had to work on the severed floor from one of these 5 departments? How many floors are there? That's a good question. I don't know if they've answered that in the show. I'd have to check the other information, the wiki and stuff. But in terms of in the actual episodes, I don't think they've answered how many floors are on Lumen, because we have no idea how many floors are underground too. I mean, there's so many floors above ground, but there's floors underground too. But yeah, I don't remember them ever mentioning how many floors there are in the building. And if anybody in the chat remembers or has seen that information, definitely drop it in the chat. But yeah, I don't remember them mentioning that. Do you?
No, I don't remember them
Yeah.
telling us. And they also are very cryptic about where the floors lead, because Milchek tells Gemma when he's sending her to the testing floor that she's going upstairs, when in reality she's going downstairs. So we don't even know where the floors are located. A lot of the innies say down here, but now we know that there's a floor below them. So they're not really down. They're not the last floor. So they might be like higher up.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, and we saw James Eagan in this final episode. He takes the elevator and it opens up not to a floor, just to one singular room, that one singular computer room where he sat and monitored Cold Harbor. I wouldn't be surprised if that was down lower as well. So yeah, who knows how many floors are below Lumen? Like, how deep does it actually go? I have to imagine, like you said, the Severance floor and the testing room floor, that there's got to be a lot more than just that, I have to imagine. But yeah, What about you guys? What about you guys in the chat? Where would you work if you had to work on the severed floor? Where would you work? I'd want O&D, says Jen the teacher, optics and design. Awesome. I picked the goat people, says Tessie. Awesome, awesome. Hey, the goat people seem like they have fun. I mean, it seems like they have a nice sense of community. They look after one another, and you get to hang out with Brienne of the goats, which is always a plus, and baby goats too, which again is always another plus. I would raise the goats, but I'm not doing the sacrifices, says Kelly. I mean, yeah, that would be the tough part, having to sacrifice these poor goats, these poor young goats at that. It's messed up. O&D for me, says Zombie Italian. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Let's see what else we got. Who is the dancing department? Yeah, is there a dancing department? I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if there is. I mean, a marching band department, goat department, O&D, MBR, wellness. I mean, there's got to be some kind of dancing department, I would imagine. I mean, do you see Milchick's moves? You don't just learn those on your own. You know, he probably runs the fucking the dancing department. Goat people, but without the outfit. Okay, Joan doesn't want the outfit of the goat people. Okay. I'd like MDR, but I'm a bureaucrat, says Peach. Gemma was a scapegoat. Yes, indeed.
Scapegoat.
There need to be 10 floors in Lumen Bet. I have to imagine there's tons. Like just below the severed floor, I wouldn't be surprised if it was at least another 10 floors below them, maybe even more for all we know. And just based on the size of the building, it looks like it's definitely at least, you know, probably a 30 to 50 floor building. Like, I mean, it looks pretty big. Looks pretty big. But yeah, where would you guys work if you had to work at Lumen? For me, part of me would want to go optics and design. I mean, I love creating things. I love building things and working with those massive, weird 3D printers, printing out all kind of weirdness might be kind of fun. Yeah, I think I would go O&D.
You were really good at macro data refining, though. When the game, you like love that. You were so good at doing the file, so maybe you just don't want to accept that you're a cubicle person.
Maybe I just don't want to accept the cubicle in me. This is very true. This is very true. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I would want to live with the goat people. I like the goats, but the goat people seemed a little weird, with the exception of Brienne the goat. The rest of them seemed very off. Wellness, I'm not the therapist type personally. I don't think that's my speed. Yeah, MDR, maybe. I mean, it is the game is fun. I do have a lot of fun crunching those numbers and refining, as it were. But yeah, I think I would go optics and design. I think it's optics and design for me. That's the one I would want. I think I would have the most fun there, or at least the day would be easiest there, building stuff like that. Choreography and merriment, says Lacey. Okay, so you'd have some you would have some company, PM. You're not the only one. You got another choreography and merriment attendee in the chat. All right, awesome. How many people are working in Lumen? That we don't know. We have no idea. And that's what was interesting about the kind of discussion between Innie and Audi Mark in the finale, which was my favorite part of the episode. The back and forth between Innie and Audi Mark, just the simplistic yet genius approach to how they brought that scene to life was definitely my favorite part of the finale. But we hear Mark kind of talking about, you want me to sacrifice my life and the life of every Innie on the severed floor to save one person that you care about. And that got me thinking, you know, how many severed people are on the severed floor? Like, we have no idea. Again, we have no idea how many departments there even are. So there's really no way to gauge how many severed people are in the building. But I imagine there's probably at least, I mean, there's got to be 100, maybe even hundreds for all we know, just based on we hear from Milchick that the marching band was, what, a 200-piece marching band set? So there's 200 people in choreography and merriment alone. Not to mention all the goat people, MDR, optics and design, wellness, and whatever other departments are there. Yeah, who knows how many severed workers are working at Lumen and how many workers at Lumen how many workers there are working at Lumen in total. I mean, unsevered as well, like your Milchiks and your Miss Wongs and all of the other floors in the Lumen building that aren't severed employees. Yeah, there's got to be thousands of employees total, I would imagine. Easy. The security above the severed floor seems less hazardous. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, you don't want to be security over at the severed floor. Those Ennies are out of control. They're like slaughtering anyone and everyone, so you don't want that job.
You might not. You bring up a very good point, and history has even shown that the innies can be very dangerous if they want to be, as per the grim barbarity of optics and design, or the grim barbarity of MDR, whichever story you want to believe. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to work security. I mean, shit, I wouldn't want to work anywhere. Look what just happened to Drummond. I mean, shit. No, look what happened to the previous security guard too, in Grainer. I mean, he did not fare too well either. Security guards do not fare well at Lumen. That's for sure. That is for sure.
Drummond had it coming though. Like he attacked Mark first. Mark was not even wanting to fight him. He just took it. When he punched him the first time, Mark was just hands against the wall, like, okay. So Drummond totally had it coming. He deserved it.
Oh yeah. Drummond earned that bolt. He earned that bolt to the throat for sure, without a doubt. He again, and I was listening to something. I finally got a chance to listen to some of the podcast, and the actor who played Drummond was on there with Ben Stiller and Adam Scott, and they were talking about the fight scene in particular, how they had choreographed it, and when Drummond slams Mark up against the wall, he was supposed to kind of put his arm up to kind of break his, to kind of make it a little a padded landing, but for some reason he couldn't get his arm up in time or something, and he ended up slamming his head right into the wall, and apparently that was the take they ended up using. So apparently he really got slammed pretty hard into that wall, and you look at the shot and it's like, holy shit, he really did. He got slammed super hard into that wall, and he didn't even have a chance to put his arm up fully to kind of break the fall and brace himself. And you hear Mark Adam Scott saying, getting concussed for the scene was worth it or something. So that's crazy if he got an actual concussion during that scene, but I wouldn't be surprised. He got slammed super hard against that wall by a pretty big dude.
It did look brutal. And when you slowed it down and showed us how his head just bounces off, you could really tell that he actually got hurt during that scene. And you know what? It was perfect though. Even though it was a mistake, it was perfect because, like you said on your video when you reviewed that scene, the innies, they don't know about the outside world. They don't know about fighting. So them using their hands at all wouldn't make sense because they don't know what that sort of interaction is like. But that makes sense. That's what an innie would do. They would just like sit there and take it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're still children at this, essentially, really, in so many ways. And I imagine, obviously none of them have ever been in fights before. They probably don't know a whole lot about defending themselves apart from just natural defense mechanisms that every kind of creature is born with, rudimentary kind of defense mechanisms, which he had a little bit of it. I mean, he's biting Drummond. He's kind of holding Drummond's tie back so Brienne can kind of take him out. So there's a little bit of fight inside Mark, but yeah, overall, what's he going to do against someone like Drummond? He's and why was Drummond so damn mad? He was so pissed. He was so pissed. And that part of me was always, I was asking myself, why did Drummond leave? Where was Drummond heading in that scene? Because we see as soon as Cold Harbor reaches 100%, he leaves the room and he tells Dr. Maurer to inform Mr. Eagan, and he takes off. Where was Drummond going? Was he going to take out Mark? Like, was that his? I mean, we did hear from Cobell that once they complete Cold Harbor to 100%, that they're going to be expendable. They'll have no further use for him. Was Drummond on his way to like kill Mark maybe? And is that why he was so mad when he found him and he attacked him right away when he found him? Because I wondered that too, All City. Like, why was Drummond so pissed in that scene? And the only thing I could think of is he knew Cold Harbor had been completed. He knew Lumon didn't need Mark anymore. And maybe he was already on his way to Mark to take him out. I don't know. He attacked him right away.
That makes sense. They didn't need to treat Mark like he was special anymore, which up until now, he was getting this treatment as if he was the most special any. And now we know that he was, right? And the reason why. So I can imagine that they would have allowed Drummond to touch Mark if he wasn't expendable at this point. But the biting, right? When you're talking about the fact that they do actually defend themselves with biting, it reminds me of toddlers because that is something that toddlers are notorious for. And they are about 2 years old, the innies, two,
Yeah.
3 years old.
Mhm.
Toddlers are notorious for biting people. So it makes like perfect sense.
I mean, when you say that, yeah, it actually is. It's perfect, right? It fits perfectly with a child. Yeah, like biting. I mean, that's children always bite each other. Absolutely. Yeah, it's like their main form of fighting. Yeah, maybe that. But yeah, I wondered why Drummond was so mad as well, and again, and where he was going. Where was he heading to? And again, all I can think of is maybe he was on his way to Mark to neutralize him, to take him out, to tie up that loose end. Maybe I don't know. Lumon probably doesn't have set salaries. They figure out how desperate you are and pay you minimum amount. That's an interesting idea. I mean, it seems like we're kind of led to believe that at least the severed positions pay pretty well. At least, from the little bit we hear from Dylan and some of the other kind of passing remarks, where I think we're led to believe that a severed position pays pretty decent, at least above average than, your average job. But is every salary the same? Probably not. I mean, I imagine Lumon, is going to do what Lumon does. They're a company at the end of the day. So, yeah.
It would match what real life companies do, where you negotiate your salary with them. And instead of them telling you what's the highest amount that they could pay you, they always ask you, how much would you like us to pay you? To see if you are stupid enough to say like the lowest amount. And then they're
Yes.
like, yeah, we could work that out for
We can
you.
do that.
Instead of just telling you, this is the highest amount we're willing to pay you. It's
Yeah.
always this back and forth game. But it does make sense because we do see a different lifestyle that each one of the innies lives according to their homes
Yeah.
and their cars, really. Like Bert, his house was really nice. So it looks
Yeah.
like he was making a lot more money, and it makes sense now, right? Considering what he was doing for Lumen. But then I think about Dylan, and Dylan's wife still had to work overnight. And I'm guessing if he made enough money to support the family, she potentially wouldn't be working overnight. So I'm thinking that he's not getting paid super well.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it definitely makes Bert definitely makes sense. Now that we know a little bit more about Bert, that he wasn't just your average severed employee, that he was actually doing extracurricular activities for Lumon as well. So he probably got paid a little bit more than your average severed employee. But yeah, Dylan's family, I mean, while we're led to believe some of these Lumon jobs pay pretty well, Dylan's family still seemed like they were kind of struggling a little bit. Like you said, the wife still had to work nights, and they definitely didn't seem very well off. And it's hard to get a sense for how well off Mark is. I mean, he seems kind of just average, normal. You never hear him complaining about finances or anything like that. You hear Devin and Rickon talking a little bit about their finances, but of course, neither one of them are severed. Yeah, I don't know. I imagine, like you said, PM, I think that's probably most likely where they, negotiate their salaries individually to try and pay each person as little as they can. So I think it's a mix of what you and what Tessie are both saying. Yeah.
So
I don't
it
know.
makes me think of Dylan when he wanted to buy that car, and his wife is like, "Oh my God." He's like, "I have to buy the car. I'm basically making money. Like, I literally would be making money buying this car." She's like, "No, please just don't."
Yeah. And that was a big part of the problem with Audi Dylan. Like, he would always get these these big ideas in his head, these business opportunities. He very much had that entrepreneur spirit, but nothing ever paid out for him. He was kind of always, it seemed like he was always kind of wasting money on stupid ventures. And that looked like that was going to be the latest one. Does anyone else think that Jaime is severed? Interesting. Jaime Eagan, the man himself. I don't know. I mean, part of me thinks no, he would never do that. But then part of me also thinks back to the line he says at the end of season 1, where his goal is to get every single person on the planet chipped. I mean, does that mean himself included? I don't know. But I don't know. I feel like Jaime Eagan seems sufficiently creepy every single time he's on screen. Like, if maybe I noticed a little bit more of a difference in his demeanor from some scenes to others, maybe that would kind of point to 2 different personalities, maybe. But every time I see Jaime, he seems like he's just the same crazy level of creepy every time he's on screen. So I'm not sure. If I had to guess, I'd probably say no, but you never know. You never know.
Yeah, and I do see that our Amargard has a good question that maybe you could refresh us all, Jeremy. Cold Harbor. So through the finale, and you just put out a video where you explain how you felt about the Cold Harbor reveal. So if you could tell us about that, she would like to know what it actually was. Because a lot of us were like, was it the crib? Is this Cold Harbor?
No, me too. I mean, I'm kind of right there with the rest of you. This is why it was kind of, I felt like it was pretty underwhelming. The Cold Harbor. I mean, Cold Harbor had been built up to be this. We hear even from Drummond, your work is going to be known as one of the most important moments in human history. Like, they've really built this Cold Harbor thing up to be larger than life. Like, it is Lumon's top priority. And then when this episode comes around, it just, I don't know, the payoff just did not feel worth it. The juice was not worth the squeeze in the end. But yeah, it seems like Cold Harbor was essentially Mark kind of creating the final new personality for Gemma, so they could go and kind of basically run this test on her, the Severance barrier test, very similar to what they were doing with every other personality, which is why it's a little weird. It's kind of like they were doing this with every personality, testing what would and would not pass or make it through the Severance barrier, what would transcend the Severance barrier. And towards the end, when we have this latest Cold Harbor persona created for Gemma, and she gets sent into this room, into the Cold Harbor room, yeah, she's faced with this crib, which of course is very symbolic of her and Mark's relationship and very symbolic of the trauma that they had gone through. And it seemed like they were watching her and monitoring her to see if any kind of emotion would bleed through, if at any point she would recognize what she was doing, or if she would just go ahead and take this thing apart like she was none the wiser. And they seemed pretty happy that she was taking it apart and she was none the wiser, that she wasn't remembering anything about her trauma. But this is why I wasn't really too happy with the Cold Harbor reveal, because that's kind of all they gave us. They didn't really give us anything more. Why was Lumon conducting this procedure, this experiment? What was Lumon planning on doing with this data when they were done with this final test that they were making Gemma do? That's why I thought it was a little underwhelming when it came to the Cold Harbor reveal, because we got what Cold Harbor kind of was, but what were they planning on doing with it? Again, what were they planning on using this information for, this experiment? What was the next step? I have to imagine this wasn't the end-all be-all plan for them. Sorry, but Gemma taking apart a crib is not the kind of work that the world is going to remember forever. So whatever they were going to apply it for, that's one thing that I feel like they could have maybe let us in on a little bit, or at least gave us a hint towards that. I imagine they're probably saving more for season 3, obviously. But just me personally, that's why I was a little disappointed with the Cold Harbor reveal. It just felt like it was built up to be this massive, 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 massive world earth-shattering thing. And it really turned out to be nothing even close to that, at least not yet. At least, I mean, maybe when we find out what they are planning on using this for, maybe it will get a little more earth-shattering. But until now, it's it's kind of just, I don't know, it was a little underwhelming. It was kind of anticlimactic for me personally, the Cold Harbor reveal. I was hoping for a little bit more.
Yeah, and it makes me think when you describe it that way, and it's about the crib and the pain and suffering or her biggest trauma, it makes me think she was never in a car crash. That never happened, because if she actually died in a car crash, was resurrected, that's the biggest trauma. So then I could see them putting her in a car, plunging her down into cold water, and having her relive her death. But they didn't. They used something from her living life, and the outfit was intact. It makes me think that somebody just picked her up. She was never in an actual car crash. She never actually died. They just made it seem like she died, because otherwise that would be your biggest trauma.
Yeah, I mean, after going through something like that, absolutely. Or, I mean, yeah, yeah. I mean, losing a child is crazy, but going on a car accident like that and everything that that she would have been through, Lumen kind of setting up this car crash, kidnapping her, putting her through all this crazy shit. I tend to agree with you. I don't think there was a car accident. I think Lumen grabbed her up and faked a car crash to kind of cover their tracks, so they could do whatever they want with Gemma. I know there's a fan theory going around out there that Gemma volunteered for this, that she herself went to Lumen of her own accord, and then Lumen just did the car accident thing to kind of give her a cover story. I don't know. I'm having trouble buying that. I can't think of any reason why Gemma would have just handed herself over to Lumen to go through this kind of experiment. I do tend to think that Lumen is just one of those companies that when they need people, they grab them, fake their deaths, and now they have a human test subject that they can do anything they want to without any fear of reprisal, because legally this person's already dead. Nobody's looking for them. They can do whatever they want. So I tend to agree with you. It seemed like if I had to guess, they probably just faked the car accident and grabbed her. Had to.
Yeah.
Lumen destroys the world with drugs, and what's left over they experiment on. I mean, that they do kind of dive into that. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, we saw what they did to the small town of Salt's Neck, where Cobell grew up. That was kind of the perfect example of what Lumen does to, every kind of town that they occupy. Every time that they occupy, either permanently or temporarily, where they move into this small town, they start mining it for its resources. This case, the resources were actual people, because they wanted the child labor to work in their ether factory. And then when we see Lumen depart the town, they leave nothing but chaos and death and nothingness in their wake. They never put anything back into the town to sustain it. So whenever Lumen comes to these small towns and sets up shop and then leaves, the town essentially dies afterwards. So yeah, Lumen is destroying the world. They're using the world for their experiments and destroying it on their way out, essentially. And I imagine there's tons of small towns all throughout the world that Lumen has done that to. That small town of Salt's Neck where Cobell grew up, I mean, I have to imagine that is not the only town that they have done something like this, and it's probably something they do all the time. So they probably destroyed a lot of small towns and a lot of small economies and just left them desolate in their wake. Most likely. All right, let's see what else we got. If not Cold Harbor, the test results, but the results, I guess. And that's the thing. It's, it's not, they didn't make it quite clear in terms of exactly what the end game was. All we see is Jaime Eagan and Dr. Maurer get super furious when Mark kind of comes into the room and stops her from completely finishing whatever test this was. And whatever that was completely, destroyed whatever they were planning, I guess. But again, I feel like they just didn't give us enough. They did not give us nearly enough on what Cold Harbor really was and what it was intended for. So that's kind of one of my only gripes with the finale, that I just feel they built this thing up super crazy. Like the foreshadowing around Cold Harbor was nuts. Like it's all they were talking about all season, that this Cold Harbor is going to be this monumental event. And again, it was super underwhelming. I was a little disappointed with how they set it up, only to get that for a payoff. But that's just me personally. Just me personally. Do you think the rooms were based on interviews Gemma gave? Like, I'm afraid of the dentist and I'm afraid of flying. And the most pitiful thing was the miscarriage and disassembling the crib. Yes, absolutely. And you actually mentioned that super early on, PM, as well, where you were talking about how these rooms might have been tailor-made based on these interviews that Gemma has given at other places. And we see that flashback in the flashback Gemma episode when she was at the fertility clinic. She gives one of those tests, and she fills out one of those things. And who do we see in the background already working at the fertility clinic? The creepy freaking dentist doctor dude. So yes, I think you're right, Peach, and I think you're right as well, PM, when you brought that up as well, that some of these rooms seem to be tailor-made for specific things that Gemma herself was afraid of.
Yeah, and I think that one of the biggest indications of that is when we see this scene where Mark has to inject Gemma for the IVF treatment.
Yes.
She says, "I will write you a thank you card," to which Mark replies, "I doubt it because you hate writing thank you cards." And she says, "Yes, I do." And it just so happens that one of the rooms, all she does is write endless thank you cards for Christmas gifts, and it's over and over. She does it every single day, right? She says it's always Christmas, and her hand is shaking, and you could see how she really hates the process of writing these thank you cards. So I think that that's one of the biggest indications that it is specific to Gemma. Anyone else wouldn't find that room as disturbing if you happen to like writing thank you cards.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, if thank you cards are just normal to you, if Christmas is something you look forward to, then yeah, a room like that might not be as scary. But for Gemma, that's a very good point. It's like kind of tailor made for her fear her fear specifically, or something she doesn't like doing specifically. And yeah, that's probably the best example of that. The cards themselves, as you mentioned. Good stuff. Anyone else notice the zombie refiner, the zombie-like refiner in any Irv's dreams in the painting too? Does that mean Irv paints these pictures? How would the painter have known that detail? Interesting. Anyone else notice the zombie-like refiner in any Irv's dream is in the painting too? Well, yeah, I think that's because that is one of the four tempers. One of the four tempers of that make up the human mind.
Woe.
Yeah, that's woe. We saw woe in episode 4 in Irving's dream, as you mentioned, and we also see woe depicted in the painting as well. That's because we see a depiction of all four of the tempers. All four of them are there, where we have, here we go. Let me get a clearer one. We have all four of them are depicted there, I believe. I do believe. Let's see. Let's see.
And you know what, Jeremy? I totally forgot to tell you, so this is my bad. But Jen, the teacher, made a beautiful diagram where she put all of the names, and she emailed you that. So
yes,
it's super clear, and I think it depicts exactly where woe is.
There we go. Yeah, you're right. Right here. Totally forgot about. Thank you for reminding me that. And again, thank you, Jen, the teacher. This was awesome that you went ahead and did this and kind of named all of these. Because again, there's a lot of characters here, tons of characters that we've seen, but some characters that are a little bit obscure that people might not notice just right off the top. So no, this was super cool for you to do this. Well done. Very well done. But yeah, here we see the same one that was depicted in Irving's dream. This is woe. We have the rest of the tempers right here. We got dread, we got frolic, we got dread, we got frolic, we got malice, and woe. The four tempers. So that was why the one that was in Irving's dream is in the painting as well, because it's just a representation of all four of the tempers, pretty much. And that was one thing I was hoping they were going to do in season 2. after we saw episode 4 and we saw Irving tame the Temper of Woe, I thought it was just perfectly set up for Mark, Helly, and Dylan to each tame one of the 3 remaining tempers. Each MDR employee needs to tame one of their own tempers, and together, all 4 of them tame all 4. I thought that would have been an interesting kind of storyline for them to set up. I was hoping that's what they were going to go, where they were going to go with it after we saw Irving tame Woe. But alas, it was not the case, unfortunately. It was not the case.
Perhaps that's a season 3 prediction. It has to be. If they already introduced us to that and they told us the next chapter is the TV nanny, they have to bring that back, right? We know the tattoos is frolic. They can't just show us one of the tempers, right? And one of the board members. If he has a tattoo, there has to be others with the other tattoos. And ironically enough, the Sebis were commenting this. It's ironic that Drummond has the frolic tattoo, being that he doesn't really frolic a lot. He's a very serious character. So could it potentially mean that you get whatever you have mastered, whatever temper you have mastered, which is why he's so serious because there is no frolic?
Yeah, I could totally see that being the case. Yeah, I mean, so much of this show is conquering things, conquering the tempers. Subduing the tempers for yourself, is like Kier did. So no, I think that would fit very well within the confines of the show with what they've already set up. If Frolic is Frolic because he doesn't frolic, because he has conquered that kind of temper. So no, I think that fits perfectly. Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. And yeah, hopefully we can learn and meet the other 3. If Drummond is Frolic, which again, I mean, it was very clear, the tattoo on his hand, the show showed us not once, but 2 separate scenes to zoom in on his hand so we could purposely see that tattoo. They wanted us to see that, obviously. So yeah, if Drummond is Frolic, then who are the other 3? Where are the other 3? Who's going to be Dread? Who's going to be Malice? Who's going to be Woe? Where are those human representations? Maybe we'll find out in season 3. But I agree. And I think this is a possibility as well, as Xavier Anderson points out, Lumen selling pain-free and trauma-free experience. And I think that was one of the things when we hear James Eagan say at the end of season 1, he wants, his goal anyway, his dream is to have an entire world of people that are severed, that are chipped. And I think, how is the best way to accomplish that? Which we've talked about this, in the past, but the best way you do that is you offer the severance technology to the general public, to a wider audience, a wider customer base. Up until now, it's only been available for people who work for Lumen on the severed floor. But if they can, as you mentioned, create a pain-free or a trauma-free experience and guarantee to create a pain and trauma-free INI for everyone to switch over to if they need it during pregnancy, during childbirth, like we've seen the show already utilize in the past, surgeries, anything really. Like if they can refine this technology and roll it out to the general public, that could potentially be the end game. Maybe that's why they're looking for that pain-free and that trauma-free experience. So they can just offer it to everybody. And that would, of course, would get them one step closer to James' ultimate goal or ultimate dream, to chip every human on the planet. If all of a sudden anybody can get severed for any little or big procedure, I imagine there's going to be a lot of people out in the world that are going to take them up on that, and definitely and use that technology. Most people, at least some people, would. I would say.
And that's how they could present it to the public in a way that the public would accept it. But when you look at how it would change the world, a company doesn't do anything out of the goodness of their heart. The reason why you cannot abuse of your employees is because of the effect that it will have on their life and on their psyche. However, if you can sever them and assure that there's not going to be any PTSD or anything that will be affected in their regular life, then you can abuse of your employees as you wish. You can do whatever you want, and all human right laws and policies are null and void, because you will never experience any of the effects of them treating you badly. And it brings back the point of a military. We always see Kier. There's three paintings that depict him in a military outfit. One is at the birthing cabin. The other one is somewhere in MDR. And then there's this one where he has a battalion next to him.
Yeah.
If you can sever soldiers, you would have the perfect soldier. There would be no
Right.
PTSD. There
Yeah.
would be no hesitation of attacking the other,
No
because there would
fear.
be
Yeah.
no feelings, no fear, no hesitation. That's all they do. That's what they're best at. And they could go back home without remembering any of the atrocities
The
that they
horrors.
committed. Exactly. And so when I think about that sort of technology, I think that that would be the end game for him to have the army, the military of his dream.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it is the perfect soldier. Like you said, it's the perfect soldier where they don't have to worry about fear. They don't have to worry about disloyalty and having these soldiers kind of go AWOL and desert their post or anything like that. It's 100% loyal soldier to the cause that is going to, follow their orders to the letter. And yeah, when the person is done, serving, like you said, they can swap back over and they don't have the PTSD. They don't have all of the after shell shock of everything that they have been through, everything that they've seen. So offering it to someone like soldiers would be one of the more practical uses that they could easily probably sell to the public a little bit easier. Like something like that, they can sell to the public a little better, as opposed to people just using it to go to the dentist. You know what I mean? But yeah, soldiers, especially considering everything that soldiers do go through, the chance to eliminate PTSD from soldiers and to create a more efficient soldier all in one fell swoop, that is something that they could probably package and sell very easily to the public. Absolutely. No, it's a very good point.
I like how you always go the positive and the kind route, that is a positive thing. No, PTSD is a positive thing. However, it's more insidious than that. When
It
you
is a little
ask a
insidious
soldier
too.
to do something and they remember what they've done, they come back home and they tell the public the atrocities of war, what they
Yes.
did, what they
Good
were
cover up.
demanded to do
It's a
in
good
other
cover up.
countries.
Yeah.
However, if you could have a soldier that you tell them to do something, they commit the atrocities of war, they come back home and they're unable to say anything, so nobody could ever uncover what you have asked them to do. Now that is more insidious and
A little
more
more
on the
insidious.
real life.
A
What I
little
think,
more insidious.
yeah.
Well, I mean, it's real life Manchurian Candidate at that point. That is the Manchurian Candidate. You put this kind of program into this soldier to get them to commit these atrocities, and then they never remember doing it. They never remember that they did do it. There's no trail. There's no loose ends to tie up. So yes, while you can eliminate PTSD, which is the good side, as you mentioned, there's also the darker side to it as well, where yeah, it creates no evidence, no trail to kind of condemn whoever gave you these orders in the first place. So that's a very good point. There's a give and take to all of it, and I feel like that's what the severed kind of technology is in and of itself, and why it's so controversial. You have some people who don't have a problem with it and think it's okay, and then you have a lot of people who think it's very immoral. Just when it's being used just for this, just for employees, you have people thinking that it is very immoral. And indentured servitude or slavery, even to a certain extent. And I can kind of agree with that. We see what these innies go through, and it's nothing but work. It is a never ending life of only being forced to work. It is indentured servitude in a sense. But yeah, if they're going to package this thing and sell it to the public, they need to present it in a way that looks as appealing as possible, because again, they already have a pretty negative view on the severed program in the world that they're set in already. Some people don't mind it, yes, but there's whole states that have completely outlawed the severance program in the world that this is set in. So if they're ever going to roll this out to the public, yeah, they're going to have to package it in a way that looks super appealing. And that's going to be tough to do in any regard, I would imagine, just by the very nature of this technology and what it can be used for. It can always be used for bad. Even if the intention is good, it can always be corrupted and twisted and used for malice. And again, I feel like that could even go back to Cobell herself and why she created the Severance program in the first place. Why did she create this technology at all? Which is something we still haven't learned. But I know we've talked and theorized that maybe there's a possibility that she created this with some more kind of altruistic goals in mind, and Lumen took the technology and corrupted it. We still don't know.
Yeah, and it makes perfect sense when you think about the person that created it. They were already escaping their day-to-day life with the use of ether. So this was a way of escaping their everyday life without having to resort to something like ether, which we know that even though she gets high in that episode, she does not stand by. It seems like she is not a big fan of it. So we could see why she would create it. It makes me think, however, Cobell created it and James took it. He took it over and he said it was his. And then we get all the lore of Kier. However, James, who
Yes.
actually knew Kier, says that it's the violence in Helly that reminds him of Kier. So his tempers were not balanced. He was a very aggressive person. He never tamed these tempers. It makes me think that it was only after James um, got this technology that he started making up the idea that Kier was a balanced human being. And therefore, Severance fits with Kier and his vision. Kier probably never wanted any of this. He didn't know about Severance, and he seems like
Yeah.
he was a very unbalanced, um, angry, and aggressive individual.
Yeah. He was. I mean, it seems like it. And yeah, like you said, that was a perfect indication that James has not tamed any kind of tempers the way that he is, or at least the way that he views Kier to be. The spirit of how he views Kier to conduct itself is not this kind of nice, safe, and well guarded and well self-controlled manner. It's straight up anger. Like right when Helly is getting ready to stab this dude with her freaking pen, that is when you see Kier in her. That is the moment you see the most amount of Kier, when she's getting ready to lose her temper and kill you. So yeah, like you said, that's super indicative of James and Kier himself in terms of maybe a lot of this is all bullshit. All of this lore that has been set up behind Kier to paint him as this messiah-like figure. Maybe it is all just bullshit, and it's all just to create the illusion of this perfect deity-like figure, so they have someone to worship, a false god in a sense. Because we see that's how Lumen is pretty much set up. They're not set up like a corporation. It's certainly not a company. It's set up as though it's a religion, a religious kind of cult order in a sense. And how do you set something like that up? Well, you need a figurehead. You need someone to rally behind, someone that will inspire people. And how do you get people to be inspired? Well, you make people think that this one person is capable of all of these just magnificent feats, that this one person has all of the answers to all of your troubles. He's tamed all of the tempers, his 9 core principles of living. You put this person up on a pedestal to present him to the public as this messiah-like figure, but behind it is all just propaganda, smoke and mirrors, all bullshit. Even down to the interdepartmental stories from one department to another, where all of these departments fear each other, where they think that they're born with pouches that have reptilians that jump out of them and fucking eat people. All these crazy kind of stories that are shared between these departments, most likely put there by Kier himself or by Lumen themselves to create a sense of fear from one department to another, so they won't band together and work together and ultimately rebel. How do you get people to not work together? You get them to fear each other at the end of the day. So no, I think the more we see of the show, the more that it goes on, the more we're starting to see that all of this tempers and all this stuff is just all bullshit, really. It's just meant to prop Kier up.
Yeah, absolutely. And now that you mentioned that, it makes me think all of these departments, they had the macro data refining department as the villain. So the department that did the printing, they believed that macrodata was the villain. And the goat people, they
Yeah.
also believed that macrodata was the villain and had pouches. And
Yeah.
so if they are pinpointing instead of each other macrodata, it makes me go back to when they explain how you get that job. So the macro data job, according to the employee manual, is a job given to people because they have very special and specific skills. And
Yeah.
it seems to be like the more intelligent or emotionally intelligent that you are, the more that you can have a better job with the company, that job being macro data refining. So potentially, these innies are the more intelligent, emotionally intelligent ones that have the potential of creating a revolt. Therefore, they have to set all the other departments against them. Because if anybody is going to figure that something is wrong out, it's probably them.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's the best way to kind of keep them from figuring it out. Because, like you said, they're right there on the severed floor. If anyone's going to notice weird, crazy shit that's going on, yes, it's these people that are super close to it. So, yeah, what's the best way to keep them from, not working together? Get them to fear each other. It seems like it is like that. Like all of these stories, and the story between him and his brother Dieter, like all of it, it's starting to just smell more and more and more just like built up propaganda. And it's fun lore, don't get me wrong, it's really fun backstory. It's fun to kind of dive into this weird Eagan family and their history and their roots and trying to figure out what is fact, what is fiction. But it does seem like more the story goes on, the more we're seeing that maybe it is just all smoke and mirrors. And Kier was just a severely messed up individual with a god complex.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, but also, can we really attribute that to Kier? Because the Severance technology comes from James Eagan.
Way later.
So,
and Lumen was already.
Says, yeah, it was already established, but the technology wasn't in his time. He was just a basic company. It is until now that all of a sudden they have this vision of what Kier wanted. It's like, how can Kier have wanted everybody to have a microchip when that technology
When he had
didn't
no
exist?
idea about him. Yeah, he had no idea this was even coming. Yeah, and that's the thing. Kier was alive, almost 2 centuries ago now at this point. And there have been so many CEOs after him leading up to James Eagan. So yeah, I mean, it's almost like each CEO kind of added a little more to the story, propped Kier up a little bit more and a little bit more. And as time went by, as the decades and centuries passed, they just slowly kept building this kind of idea of this perfect Kier individual, build him up and build him up and build him up on this pedestal to have the ultimate kind of figurehead for your quote unquote company or your cult, church, religion, really more like it. You got your Messiah figure now. You have your God, you have your deity to worship now because he's been built up over the decades from each CEO going all the way up to James. And yeah, like again, the Severance technology itself is still super, super new compared to how long Lumen itself has been around. Lumen they were always an ether company. That was their thing. They were an ether company for the most part. Yes, I imagine they had other stuff that was under their umbrella. But even so far up to when Cobell was young, before she created the Severance chip, they were still setting up ether factories all over the place. So it seems like that was their kind of main business until the Severance chip came around, it seems.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy. But yeah, there's no way Kier could have known about the chip. I mean, that's for sure. And again, it seems like a lot of the built up mystique around Kier is just bullshit. It's bullshit. It is all fake. It's all fake. It's all one big fugazi.
Of course, that's a fugazi. All right?
That's a fugazi? How do you know it's a fugazi? He says it's a fugazi.
What's a fugazi?
The diamonds are fugazi.
No, what is a fugazi?
Right? It's all a fugazi. You know what a fugazi is?
Well, fugazi, it's fake.
Yeah, fugazi, it's a wazi, it's a woozy, it's a fairy dust. It doesn't exist. It's never landed. It is no matter. It's not on the elemental chart. It's not fucking real.
Right?
All right? Stay with me.
Mm-hmm.
Never heard that before. A fugazi.
Fugazi. Yeah, it's usually it's an Italian thing for the most part. It's in Donnie Brasco with Johnny Depp and Al Pacino, 90s kind of mobster movie. Fugazi. It's a fugazi. Fugazi. It's a wazi. It's a woozy. It's fairy dust. It's fake. It does not exist on the elemental charts.
Is that the Italian version of fake news?
Pretty much. Yeah, it's fugazi. It's a fugazi. Pretty much. Italian version of fake news in a sense. Yes. Indeed. But yeah, I mean, Kier, it seems like the man behind the myth. That's what I want to get to know. I want to get to know who was the real Kier. We hear all the stories, we hear all the legends, all the lore behind him. Who is the real Kier? Who is the real man behind the myth? You know, we hear some stories that he is a product of incest, that he was born with kind of genetic deficiencies and he lived his life in a lot of pain. He wasn't a very fit human being, which could have been attributed to those genetic deficiencies. On his deathbed, apparently he was very much in pain and spent the last few years of his life on his deathbed, very much kind of contemplating his own mortality and what his legacy was going to be. And I wouldn't be surprised if that was right around the time where he thought to kind of prop himself up and turn himself into this kind of figure, because he knew that his life was coming to an end. He knew he had no way of cheating death, but he wanted to be remembered forever. So he kind of sets himself up to be this kind of Messiah-like figure. And the ball just kind of rolls from there, where each CEO props him up a little bit more, and a little bit more. But yeah, I want to know who the real Kier is. Like, who was the real Kier? What was this guy really like? How did he start this company? Why did he start this company? What were his goals? Because again, it can't have anything to do with Severance. As you mentioned, James, Cobell created Severance, which was very much in our time period, the current time period. Kier would have had no idea of anything that had to do with anything like that. They didn't have any kind of technology even close to that back then. So I wonder what Kier's original vision for the company was. Behind all the smoke and mirrors, behind all the lore that is set up, the real person, the real Kier. What was his real goal, I wonder?
Yeah, who was he really like? Now we know that he's shorter than this wax statue, according to Mr. Milkshake, right? He was much shorter and much less impressive. I did see the Chevys in the chat talking about Miss Huang getting sent to El Carajo because she had no empathy. All of a sudden, she is going to this empathy center. And I do think that that was part of Mr. Milkshake kind of having revenge, right? Because she didn't show any empathy for what he was going through. She was very, picky about the things that she reported on him. So I think that that was him saying, "You lack empathy. I'm going to send you a la chingada to this empathy center," right? Jen, the teacher, so that you can learn some empathy, right? And grow up. Um, I think that that was specifically chosen by Mr. Milkshake.
I wouldn't be surprised at all. Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense, especially with the kind of weird relationship that Milkshake and Mini Milkshake had, the whole time they were there. Very much kind of working together, but at odds, kind of subtle jabs at each other. It definitely seems like she was the one who reported on him to the higher ups about him not using paper clips the right way and using too big of words. So yeah, no, I wouldn't be surprised at all if that was the case. I think that fits perfectly, actually. Yeah, I think that fits perfectly. Maybe it was just his idea, his way of getting back, in a sense. And that's why I think he took joy in choosing which item she had to sacrifice upon graduating from the Wintertide Fellowship. Yes, it appears that is in the handbook that she does have to give up something as a gesture of a show of commitment to the company. But Milchik could have picked anything, or he could have let her pick something that was close, that she was close to. But he picks the one thing that he sees in her hand every single day. She carries it on her. That's how much she loves this little ring toss game, this little Kier ring toss game. And it seemed like he specifically chose that as a way of kind of getting back at her a little bit, a way to kind of stick it to her for everything that she had kind of, or that he perceived that she had done to him.
Yeah, the only other better choice would have been her theremin. If he had made her like slam the thing on the theremin and then mandada a la chingada, yes, all City and Jen, the teacher. A la chingada la mando. But the theremin would have been another good one.
It would have been, yeah. That's probably the two most devastating items that Miss Wong probably wouldn't want to lose. You know, like she was so proud of her theremin. She was so getting ready to play for the party for the memorial for Irving, and then Milchick shuts her down, and she's like, "Oh, I thought I was going to play." He's like, "Oh, you can prepare your piece for me later." Very kind of the one father-daughter-esque scene that we kind of have between them before they go back to kind of being rivals. So no, that's a good point. Yeah, if it wasn't the ring toss game, the theremin would have been a good one too. She seems like she likes her theremin. She likes it enough to bring it on the freaking Orpo, for crying out loud. She had it out there in the middle of the woods playing this freaking thing. So that's a good point. Good point.
It's too bad that we didn't get to see her in the finale, because I would have loved to see what part she takes in the finale. Like, does she help Mr. Milkshake? Does she help the Innies? Does she sabotage Mr. Milkshake? So I was really missing her in the finale. But on rewatch, I was focusing specifically on Mr. Milkshake and everything that he had been through that week, right? And on that same finale episode, I forgot that Helly also gives him a lot of attitude. As soon as she gets there and she says, Mark hasn't been in for 2 days. And he tries to explain to her, just go back to your desk, do the work. Dylan is in charge. She starts telling him, oh, right, interchangeable parts like you and Cobell. And he's like, please go back to your desk. Please leave the door open. And she's like,
she just shuts it.
Yeah. And he's like, please leave the door open. She shuts it in his face. So even Helly got in on the disrespect way before the violence, the revolt.
Yeah. Yeah, very true. Very true. That part was freaking pretty hilarious when he goes, leave it open, and she just shuts the fucking door on his face. Love that. Love that. That's like so Helly. That's such a Helly thing to do, no? Like purposely shutting the door when someone's asking to keep it open. That just screams Helly. The disdain she has for the Lumen higher ups, you know? Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah. I love this picture of little Melanie Milkshake. You never see her smile that way. You got the perfect still.
Yeah, this is her from the very first episode, the first time we really meet Minnie Milkshake when they're playing the ball game, sitting at the table. Yeah, this is like when we first see her kind of normal. Like she's kind of normal in the beginning when we first see her. Yeah, a little bit weird to have a child on the severed floor in this kind of position. But yeah, like you said, she at least smiled here. I don't know if we've seen her smile anywhere else in any other episodes after this. That's a good point. This might be the only time she really smiles. Crazy.
She's so cute. She is so cute, Minnie Milkshake. I think that she was, one of my favorite characters. That's Mr. Milkshake and Minnie Milkshake.
Yeah, I mean, I liked their dynamic. I think they had an interesting dynamic in season 2. It was always a little bit awkward, a little bit standoffish, but then every once in a while you would see those glimpses of like that father-daughter kind of routine, like the theremin scene. They had an interesting dynamic. I feel like they utilized their kind of relationship pretty well in season 2 in terms of what they could have done with it. It could have gone in a much different direction, but yeah, I like that. I like that. Poor Minnie Milkshake was never happy again. It seems like the more time she spent on the severed floor and the more time she actually spent with Innies, as opposed to just hearing about Innies, it seemed like she totally started to change. Like she started to change her view on Innies even by the time she gets to the end of season 1, where towards the beginning of the season, she's telling Milchick that you shouldn't even let them have a funeral. It makes them feel human. I imagine that's the indoctrination at work. That's the brainwashing at work, where she's been probably told, you know, her whole time at the Wintertide program, at the Myrtle Eagan School for Girls, she's probably been told the whole time that innies are less than human. They're the workforce. They are not people. She's probably had that drilled into her head. So by the time she arrives at the severed floor, she does not look at any of these innies like they're human. She looks at them like they're just an asset to be used, not people, not real people. But the more time she spent there, the more time she spent with them, observing them, it seems like she slowly started to see that, okay, yes, they are people. These are people with real thoughts and feelings and traumas and problems of their own. And I think she got a good glimpse of that through Dylan. She was definitely observing at least some of Dylan's interactions with Dylan's Audie's wife when she would come to visit. It was Milchick there kind of overseeing it. And that's why I think she kind of feels a little bad at the end when she tells Dylan, I'm sorry, Dylan G. I should have facilitated better. I feel like she slowly started to get a glimpse of the innies being actual humans. And I think that was a big part of it, her watching Dylan with Gretchen.
Yeah, and it's so ironic that the minute that she's actually understanding, getting to know that the innies are actual people, is when she's shipped off to the empathy center. And
Yes.
that is when she actually is showing some empathy for Dylan G and showing that she understands now the way that the innies are kind of, managed, in the way that she herself didn't get a choice. So I found that to be very ironic. She was also so sad when she was waiting for that bus. I just felt so bad for Minnie
I
Milkshake.
know. Yeah. You do feel a little bad for her at the end, like when you see how her storyline kind of plays out. Especially how Milchick kind of describes it earlier in that episode, how he straight up says your bed is going to be moved from your parents' house to the facility in Svalbard. It's like, okay, you're not even giving her a chance to go home and pack her own stuff and say goodbye to their family. Complete isolation tactic that we see so many of these kind of cult-like groups and predatory kind of groups use. It's always isolation. Isolate the person from their family, from their friends, from their loved ones. We don't want any outside influence putting anything in this child's head that we have just completely brainwashed to the point where we're going to even move her own bed and belongings to her next post. We're not even letting her go home. And yeah, you start to feel a little bit bad for her because, again, she really is just another victim of the child labor that Lumen has utilized for Lord knows how long. There's this sick child labor program that they continue to kind of feed. It's that nasty machine that they just keep feeding over and over again, grabbing children when they're super young, sending them off to that school, getting them indoctrinated, getting them brainwashed, then assigning them somewhere to serve Lumen. It's just a never-ending kind of wheel that just keeps turning, and it just crushes everybody under it.
Definitely. And I love to see the difference of opinions because some of us feel super bad for Minnie Milkshake, but some of our Sevies don't. I do see that a lot of Sevies are totally on board with what happened to her, just like Jen, the teacher, points out here. She fucked around and found out.
I love that. Love that. I mean, she did in a sense. I can kind of see both sides. I can definitely kind of see both sides. On one hand, I do feel bad for her because she is a child that was exploited. But on the other hand, yeah, she fucked around and found out. I get it. I get it.
With this picture on there.
Yeah, she fucked around and found out. Yeah, that's the meme right there. This smile right here. She fucked around and found out. That's a good meme right there. It's a good Severance meme. Yeah, and maybe is Milchick the one with no empathy? I mean, at times he displays moments like he almost does have empathy, and then he'll do something to directly contradict that empathy. And I think, we talked about this a few weeks ago, but a really good example of that was when Gemma was escaping. And he was the sole reason why she didn't escape, the sole one who stopped her from escaping, which is a very kind of completely opposite kind of contrast to how Milchick was talking at the beginning of season 2 when he's telling Innie Mark that I feel bad for what I did to you. I locked you into a room like an animal, and that's something I'm going to have to live with for the rest of my life. And I don't want to be your jailer. So he goes from not wanting to be the jailer of the innies, not wanting to kind of lock them in rooms, not, feeling all bad for everything he did, to knowingly doing this to Gemma the whole time, knowingly keeping Gemma down there on the testing room floor. Milchick's known, she's been there since the very beginning. Even in season 1, he knew what was happening to her, which is very evident with the little conversation we have between Milchick and Cobell, when Milchick says to Cobell, it's a good thing he doesn't remember her. So Milchick has known from the very beginning what was going on down there on that testing room floor, what they were doing to Gemma, what they were putting her through. So yeah, on one instance, he talks about not wanting to be the innies jailers. Yeah, on the other hand, that's literally what he's doing to Gemma, being her jailer. So yeah, Milchick might be the one with no empathy. Definitely.
A really interesting thing about Mr. Milkshake on rewatch, he focuses in when he's having that conversation on the phone with Mark on a painting of the iceberg, which is depicted on the Wikipedia for Severance. And icebergs are famously known for having 90% of what they actually are underwater, under surface. So you can't really see how massive they might be or might not be, right? And I think that that is a great metaphor to who Mr. Milkshake is. Well, you see somebody that's very pleasant, has a beautiful smile, is a wonderful communicator because he could just about communicate anything he wants to anyone. He could find a way to get you to do what he wants. I think most of the time, not really in the finale because the Ennis ignore him, but most of the time, um, a lot of his motivation and a lot of what might be actually motivating him is under the surface. We
Yeah.
see when Kier is making fun of him, he has this like look about him where he's holding back. He's like staring and smiling, but he's holding back his real thoughts. So when he says, I don't want to be your jailer, it was very hurtful for me what I did to you. I feel like with Mr. Milkshake, you just never know. You never know if
Yeah.
he means it, if he maybe is a good person, or if he is a complete and total villain. Because sometimes he sounds sincere, but you just can never tell.
It is, and that's the thing with him. He's just so hard to read. It's so hard to read this guy, and if he's being authentic, if he's actually telling you how he really feels, or if he's just playing the game, if he's just bullshitting. And that's interesting. It's always interesting when I see a character like that is just genuinely so tough to get a accurate read on him, because I feel like usually, us, everybody in the chat, I feel like we're usually pretty good judges of character when it comes to some of these characters and kind of sussing out some of their motivations and why they tick, what makes them tick. But Milchick is one of those characters where it's really tough to genuinely pinpoint what this dude really wants, what he really believes, what he really feels. When he's saying these things, does he actually believe what he's saying? He's probably the toughest character to read on the entire show. Because he does so many contradictory things that directly contradict, his previous actions, and we see him do it all the time. So it's super hard to get like a real accurate read on Milchick and what this dude's really up to. But
Yeah, he still. I remember when Severance started, you stated that he was the most interesting character because we didn't know anything about his actual motivation or his life outside of Lumen. And to this day, he remains the most interesting character. And we have a lot of interesting ones, but to this day, he remains the most interesting one. Where in season 3, talking about predictions, I don't know. I cannot predict if he's going to help the Ennies or completely be the villain the entire time.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see. I mean, I know a lot of people wanted to see a Milchick redemption arc, and a lot of people got very hopeful when we saw him finally stand up to Drummond and finally stand up to Lumen with the whole devour feculence. But again, time and time again, as All City points out, when push really comes to shove, he keeps kind of proving that he is a company man, that he is a Lumen man. He's a Lumen middle management boss that is going to kind of further the agenda of the company. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, is that going to be his kind of storyline in season 3? Are we going to continue to see Milchick kind of double down and kind of, commit to Lumen and everything that they're doing? Or will we start to kind of slowly see him turning a little bit, slowly opening his eyes a little bit more? And I think until we find out who Milchick is and where he came from, it's going to be hard to kind of accurately predict where he's going. And that's one thing that is always very important for whenever you're trying to figure out who a character is, their motivations, what makes them tick, why they do the things they do. The best piece of information that you could give to an audience member is to show us who this character is in terms of where they came from. It's one thing to try and guess where they're going, but I feel like you can never really accurately guess where a character is going until you know where they've been. So I'm really hoping we get a good, decent backstory episode for Milchick in season 3. We got a really good one for Cobell in season 2. I would love to see something like that in season 3, where we get a whole episode just dedicated to finding out who Milchick is, where he came from, how he came in contact with Lumen, why he's so loyal to Lumen. Did he go to a similar school like the Myrtle Eagan School for Girls? Is there a male counterpart school like that? Is that where Milchick came from? Did they find him off the streets? Like, where did Milchick come from? How did Lumen get their hooks into him? Why is he so loyal to Lumen? And yeah, I feel like once we figure that out, once we figure out where Milchick came from, it'll be a lot easier to try and predict where he's going to go, because we'll have an accurate depiction of where he's been and what's really inside of his head, what his mindset really is, what are his traumas, what kind of trauma is he dealing with? What has he been through in life? These are the kind of things that really help you inform where a character is going once you find out where they've been.
That's a great point, and Scotty Saturn is saying it perfectly. Also, we need a backstory for Natalie and Ragabi. Those two characters are also very interesting.
Yeah.
Ragabi, where did she learn how to undo the severance procedure?
Yeah.
Right? This is like really classified information. So how is it that she knows? I'm guessing if she was a surgeon, she was a severed surgeon and
Yeah.
therefore couldn't have remembered. So she would have had to integrate her own self to remember what the procedure was. And Natalie, how did Natalie get to be the voice of the board? Right?
Yes.
Where did she come from? So I think those three, definitely season 3. I totally agree, Scotty. I want to see the backstories for Mr. Milkshake, Natalie, and Ragabi.
100%. 100%. Like, Natalie's another one that's super interesting and super kind of mysterious in terms of, like, how did this person become the sole kind of guide, the sole kind of go between anybody who's talking to the board and the board? Like, that seems like that's a very important position, a position that you would only put someone you trust wholeheartedly in, considering how mysterious this board is and how much they don't interact with people. You'd think they would only have the most trusted of confidants kind of being their go-between. So yeah, it kind of makes you want to know what's up with Natalie that much more. Where did she come from? Did she kind of follow another trajectory similar to Cobell and Miss Wong, where she went to the Myrtle Eagan School for Girls and the Wintertide Fellowship and kind of worked her way up the ranks? Is it one of those stories, or is it something a little bit different? We need some backstories for some of these characters. Natalie, definitely Ragabi too. Ragabi's another one where all we really know about Ragabi is that she used to work at Lumen, but we know nothing else past that. Like, we know she was working on the severed chips, it seems like, either installing them into people or refining them or repairing them, working on them in some kind of capacity. Most likely probably installing them is what I imagine Ragabi was doing. But how does she go from that to learning about reintegration? How did she realize that reintegration was possible? Like, did she get there on her own? What kind of breakthrough did she have to lead her to even think that this was a possibility? So yeah, we need some of those backstories for sure. We need some backstories for Ragabi, for Natalie, and definitely for Milkshake, for sure. For sure. Do we know who was speaking through with Milchick through Kier's figure? Maybe it's not important, but I was asking myself that question to who Milchick was really talking to. From what I can gather, it was the same voice of the same actor who voices um, Kier in season 1. When they go to the perpetuity wing for the first time, we see that there's this voice kind of coming out of the Kier statue talking about the four tempers and the 9 core principles. And the same voice actor, the same actor that they modeled the older version of Kier after, is whose voice was coming through the same statue. Because I know a lot of people were asking that, like, whose voice is this coming through Kier? I mean, it seems like this can't just be a pre-programmed voice, considering they're having an active live conversation. Like, Kier is like responding to the things that Milchick is saying. Unless all of these responses were just pre-programmed into this thing, and they just had millions of, ready to go phrases pre-programmed in, it makes you wonder what the heck was going on there. Was somebody controlling that voice? Was somebody watching what was going on and controlling the Kier statue and kind of saying, replying to what Milchick was saying? Because again, it didn't seem like these were pre-programmed answers. It felt more like Milchick was having a freaking conversation with a mannequin. That's what it felt like.
Yeah, and I always thought the board is watching the performance. The way that they set up the performance, it was a performance that you set up like the Super Bowl, where as they're walking in, there's already that the lighting is going, the spotlight is going on Mark. When the band performs, they do that ending scene where they say Mark, and they put out the poster of Mark, but it's above, so Mark can't see it, but somebody can. And I was thinking that is why he's performing, and there was a laugh track, right? So it seemed to me like if this was a momentous occasion, they would be recording this for the board. This is something you would want to have forever, right? The minute that everything was completed, or something that the board would want to see. That's always like what I thought when I saw the performance and the way that they set it up.
Yeah, it does always seem like a performance is going on. Nothing ever seems like it's genuine. Everything kind of seems and feels pre-scripted. So yeah, I mean, it's just that was such a funny kind of back and forth between these two as well. Like just seeing freaking Milchick and this freaking Kier doll just kind of dissing each other back and forth. Where yeah, it seemed like a full-blown conversation. It didn't feel like pre-programmed answers. But yeah, if I can chalk it up to another unexplained things on Severance, I guess. I think Natalie is also an Eagan. Now, some people have brought that up as well. Some people have brought up that maybe that's why Natalie has made it so high up and why she's so trusted to be the board's go-between, because she is, in fact, an Eagan. And I mean, at this point, almost anyone around her age range on the show could potentially be an Eagan, considering what we have just learned about James Eagan in particular, with James Eagan siring multiple different children, sons and daughters, hoping that he could see Kier inside them. But apparently he didn't see Kier in any of them, which of course is, just one of the many other reasons why the dude's super fucking creepy. But yeah, I mean, knowing that he has had all of these children with all of these mistresses, I mean, I have to imagine there's going to be a few secret Eagans on the show already that haven't been uncovered yet. And some people think Mark is a secret Eagan. Some people think Cobell is a secret Eagan. And yeah, maybe even Natalie could potentially be a secret Eagan. Certainly a possibility, I suppose. I suppose anything's possible now with how much James Eagan got around.
Right? Who would have thought? I really like the theory that the prediction that a lot of Sevis were talking about, where Mark is a secret Egan, because that would put a hindrance on the relationship with Elena. Even though they could possibly be together, they're running around the hallways. If they were to find out that they are siblings, then definitely that would, hinder the ability for them to have a relationship. And so Mark would have to go back to Gemma. I like that because it's something bigger than them that would be keeping them apart. Although I tend to think that if anybody's going to be an Egan, it's going to be Cobell.
I like Cobell being an Egan more than anybody else. I do. I like the idea that Cobell could potentially be an Egan, but after seeing the finale, I think it could be interesting that maybe Cobell could be Mark's mom, even. Like, one thing we still don't know is why Cobell was so invested in Mark. Why did she want to get so close to Mark? What is it about Mark that Cobell wanted to kind of keep an eye on? It seemed like she really just wanted to keep an eye on him at work and on the severed floor. And in this episode, in the finale, is just one line that I can't shake. One line that just keeps playing over and over in my head. Not just one line, but two occurrences. What the first is when she's talking to Mark, and we talked a little bit about this in our previous stream, where she genuinely seems kind of like sad for Mark, where she was like, "Oh, Mark, there'll be no honeymoon ending for you in hell yeah." It didn't seem like it was like an evil, malicious thing that she was saying. It seemed like she was genuinely just trying to kind of prepare him for reality. Like, sorry, like I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I'm sorry, Mark, this is not going to work out. But then towards the end, when Annie Mark is about to storm out of the cabin, we see Cobell trying to stop him. And the last thing she says is, "Mark, I care for you." And it seemed kind of genuine. Again, it's hard to get a read on Cobell all the time as well, but I feel like we're starting to know her a little bit more. The way that she kind of just said that, like, "Mark, I care for you," that made me think that, holy shit, like, could Cobell actually be his mom, maybe? Is that why she was so invested in him? Is this why she was trying to get so close to his life? Not just to his life, but to Devin and the child. She was his neighbor. Like, Cobell was clearly had some kind of attachment or connection to Mark that hasn't been released yet. I mean, we have to find out at some point why she was doing what she was doing, because whatever she was doing was not Lumen approved. At first, I thought it was just that. We knew that Mark was incredibly important to Lumen. We knew that she was the head of the severed floor at Lumen. So I kind of just thought this is something Lumen has her doing, getting close to Mark to keep an eye on him because he's worth so much to the company. But then when we find out that she was doing all of that on her own, that Lumen essentially fired her in part because she was doing that, that made me wonder, okay, what kind of connection does Cobell have with Mark? Is there some kind of familial tie there in some way, maybe? I don't know. But that last line, I just can't shake it. "Mark, I care for you." I don't know.
I always thought Cobell wasn't able to take any credit for the technology that she created. She was supposed to keep it to herself, or she would have been kicked out of the company, ostracized. Therefore, even though she knew that the technology was going on, that they were making progress on it, testing it, experimenting, she wasn't privy to the information. The best that she could do is get a job at the Severance floor as a manager. So I always thought the reason why she's so interested in being so close to Mark is because this is the way that she gets to see her technology in action. She gets to see for herself if the severance barrier is holding, because she doesn't have that info from the testing department. She has to get this candle and try it out herself. So she, as a scientist, is running her own sort of experiments, and she's observing her project. That's the way that I looked at it. Maybe it began as a form of observation on this project of hers because she couldn't get close to him otherwise. She couldn't claim credit for the technology. And then she developed, like with anything, right? Maybe it began as just observing him, but as you observe him, observe his pain, he's sitting in front of the TV, he's drinking hard liquor, he's very sad. Maybe you grow a sort of attachment. Even though you are experimenting on him, you do grow to kind of care for him.
You do. Yeah, you kind of do. And that's always interesting about good writing, where, when sometimes writing is so good and these characters are developed in such a way where you can start having empathy and you can start feeling bad for characters that have done heinous things sometimes. And that's always been a mark of some really good writing, in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, so many questions, still so many questions. This is one thing that I'm glad season 2 didn't answer everything, but they didn't really answer much of anything when you really stop and kind of look and think about it. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of threads here that still need to get tied up. But I get it. You know, they were planning on doing a third season. They probably didn't want to answer too much in season 2. And overall, I did really enjoy the season, though. I must say, I definitely did enjoy season 2. It was a very fun ride. The finale, in my opinion, could have been a little bit different in some areas, but I still enjoyed it. I feel like the finale had some of the best scenes of Severance I've ever seen, like the Mark versus Mark talking to Mark. Still one of the best sequences I've ever seen on Severance, just the way that was executed, that brilliant back and forth between those two. But yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing a Milkshake again story episode. Yeah, I wouldn't mind it. I would definitely not mind seeing a Milkshake-like episode in the same vein as the one we got for Cobell this season. That would be interesting. Do we know who's speaking with Milkshake through Kier's figure? Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, we don't know, like, officially. We only know who the voice of the actor is, which, again, is apparently the voice of the actor who is depicted as Kier, that Kier was kind of modeled after, the older version of Kier. There is an actor that has been cast in that role. We haven't seen him in any episodes yet, but I imagine he'll appear at some point. They wouldn't have gone so far as to cast an actor for Kier if they weren't planning on putting him in some kind of episode at some point. So maybe we'll get a flashback Kier episode in season 3, maybe. But yeah, I couldn't tell if it was just, you know, a pre-recorded response or someone on the other end feeding these answers in real time. It felt more like a conversation again than recorded responses. Yeah, Natalie's so interesting and hella creepy with her eyes and constrained smile. And then she was on the PR at the Lumon Gala. Yeah, she's an interesting one. She's a very interesting one. You know, it's you get the sense, you know, her and Milchick, whenever Milchick was kind of trying to reach out to her, you almost get the sense that she kind of wanted to reciprocate, but she probably always knows that Lumon is watching 24/7 and didn't want to do that, unfortunately. But yeah, Natalie's another one of those characters like Milchick where it's kind of hard to know where their true loyalties lie. I mean, it definitely seems like she's loyal to Lumon, but in terms of like finding out who this character is, what makes her tick, her motivations, why is she the way she is, it's super hard to read, just like Milchick is super hard to read. So maybe, hopefully, we'll learn a little bit more about Natalie and Milchick in season 3, for sure.
In the podcast, the actress that plays Natalie, in the like second to last episode of the podcast, they had her and she spoke about those interactions with Mr. Milkshake, in which she said, while talking to Ben Stiller and the creator, that Natalie feels like she has empathy towards Mr. Milkshake, but she is playing up her white side in order to keep her position in the company, which is something that we saw that the Sevis started mentioning this. The Sevis told us this is the interaction that we're seeing, and this is what it looks like with these two people. And they were in fact correct, because that was confirmed in the podcast that the actress, while she is understanding of the paintings and the problematic behavior that Lumon has, she understands it and then plays up to the white side of her and her position in the company, and therefore creates that barrier of, I don't actually understand you. So
yeah, I mean, and that's an interesting way to play those kind of scenes, and that's interesting that she kind of gave the audience that kind of insight where, yeah, I mean, yeah, there might be a part of her that wants to, but it's almost like she's always in performance mode. Like she can never drop performance mode. She's in character all the time. Very method actress, if anything else, very method. Where, yeah, you know, even when she sees Milchick and she probably sees the hurt and the loneliness and the pain inside of him and maybe wants to reach out, she just knows she can't. She knows she can't and has to play up that other side to her. So no, it's an interesting way to approach a character like that, to feel like you're playing this character that is constantly performing and never able to truly just be herself, which must be tough. Must be very tough. After seeing James give credit to Helly for having Kier in her, it makes me think that Kier was more Dieter. Dieter was the rebellious one who left to who left to the woods. Maybe, maybe. Again, in this, there's still a whole ton of debate around whether or not Dieter was even real, whether or not Dieter was actually Kier's brother, or whether or not Dieter was just a part of Kier that Kier wanted to kill. Like he wanted to kill a part of himself off, his empathetic side or some kind of side of him. I'm still not 100% sure if Dieter was real or not. Again, I feel like out of all of the evidence, I feel like there's good evidence pointing to both him being a real brother or maybe him just being a figment of Kier's imagination. I'm still not 100% sure which way I lean on. I feel like it's better for the story if Dieter was real, because if Dieter was real and Kier did have a twin, it's almost like they were, in a sense, the very first iteration of a severed individual, two halves of a whole kind of thing, the original severed person. But it's also interesting to think that maybe he was just a figment of his imagination too, as well. I mean, which way did you ever lean on that, PM? And let me know in the chat what you guys think as well. After everything we've seen in season 2, do you think that there's a possibility that Dieter was Kier's real brother, or do you think maybe he was just a figment of his imagination?
I think it could all be made up, because if we think about it, right, let's follow the actual timeline. The story that we get of Dieter and Kier and him taming his tempers, which is what the microchip is supposed to do, tame your tempers. That story is a relatively new story because the technology to create severed individuals comes with James Eagan and Cobell. We know that she created it. So it couldn't have been something that the company had before Cobell, and then James just kind of made it public. This started with Cobell. So this is long after Kier lived and died. So this entire story with Dieter and him being like a form of severed individual or taming his tempers could all be fake. Maybe Kier himself was very violent. He was right aggressive. He never tamed any of his tempers. He never wanted of any of this. But then James Eagan gets this technology and he creates all of the stories of how he was so well managed, how he was so tamed, how he tamed all of the tempers in order to sell the story. Because Kier had no way of knowing the duality of the severed individual. That wasn't his thing. That wasn't what he sold. That wasn't what he did. The technology came decades after with Cobell. So for all we know, Dieter could just be another made up thing from the Eagans, from James Eagan himself, to try to sell us on this technology and on Severance.
Yeah, and to kind of portray Kier in a different light, paint him as having this kind of abusive kind of brother that he had to kind of free himself from, like build up that Messiah-like figure even more. And again, I think you could be right, because it is starting to seem a little bit more and more, at least for me, I'm starting to think about it more and more. And it does start to feel like all of this stuff surrounding Kier is just all bullshit. It's just all propaganda meant to build this character up into this Messiah-like figure. So yeah, I mean, Dieter Eagan could just be another part in that story, where it's another part to portray Kier as this thing that he never was, that he never would have been, that he just isn't. And yeah, I mean, a lot of it does seem like it is just bullshit built up by the company and built up by the Eagan family in particular to keep their, this kind of idea of Kier that they have projected to the world, to keep it alive and to keep it, in the forefront of people's minds, that he was this kind of larger than life figure, when really maybe he wasn't. Maybe he was a little darker. Maybe he was violent. Maybe he was the exact opposite of all of these stories we're hearing, essentially. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure about Kier. I think he's a bullshitter. I think he's a big old bullshitter. I think he's lying to us. I think he's lying. Mark could be adopted since Devin has blue eyes like the Eagans. Maybe he is Cobell's kid and not Fern Scott. Yeah, and that's the interesting thing. I mean, it is a possibility that he could have been adopted. Maybe that's certainly a possibility. I mean, a lot of people think Mark is an Eagan, and again, some people think he might even be Cobell's son. I think he could potentially be Cobell's. I think it's a possibility at least, but I don't know. I don't know. But then again, part of me also doesn't want this show to start going down the route where all of these characters just are all of a sudden secret Eagans, where there's 100 different secret Eagans running around, because then it kind of cheapens it. It cheapens the impact of that happening when it does happen, if it happens too much. And that was something that was kind of going around with Game of Thrones when Game of Thrones was on and at its height. You had all of these fan theories that all of these characters were secret Targaryens. You know, Tyrion was a Targaryen, Jaime was a Targaryen, Brienne was, everybody was a Targaryen. And I'm glad that that wasn't the case, that there was only one character that was the secret Targaryen, Jon Snow, because it starts to cheapen it. If you start just all of a sudden popping up all of these characters that are all just happen to be Eagans the whole time, it's gonna cheapen that reveal. It's not gonna feel like a worthy reveal if so many people are just these secret Eagans all of a sudden. So I could definitely see it being one of these characters being a secret Eagan, but multiple of them, I don't think so. I hope not, at least, because I think that'll cheapen it.
It reminds me to the family. If any of you Sevis are also family members, it reminds me of the Who is Martin, where everybody was Martin. And they started like doing diagrams of like clothing and saying that like that's definitely Martin, this is Martin, that is Martin. And we never figured out who Martin is, or we haven't. Some people think they have. We don't know. That is to be seen. But it reminds me of that. Yeah.
Yeah, it is super similar to that. Yeah, and I the one that always got me still to this day was the Fatima is Martin with the Fatima meme. Oh my God, it looks so bad. Like, oh my fucking God, it's nightmare fuel. Absolute nightmare fuel. Q's Insight says, do we think the Watchers and doppelgangers we see in the snow that guide Mark S. and their team, are they the same people? The ones that we see, the doppelgangers that we see in the snow that guide Mark's team with the Watchers, no, I don't think they're the same. I think when we get a close-up of the Watchers that were in that room, that the ones that are watching Mark kind of do his work on his computer screen, they all bear a striking resemblance to who they're watching, but I don't think they're the doppelgangers or the shadow twins like we saw guiding our MDR people to Woe's Hollow. It seemed like it was two totally different things, where one was almost like this weird kind of 3D printed version of a person that was that only served one function, to kind of just stand there and point. Very simple, very rudimentary. But these seemed like actual people, like real actual people that just happened to kind of resemble a little bit of who they were watching. Like Mark's looked a little bit like Mark's, Helly's looked a little bit like Helly in terms of having the same red hair. Dylan's looked a lot like Dylan's in terms of being the same, the same size. And even Irving's looked a little similar to Irving's as well. But no, it looked like they were different beings from the shadow twins that we saw in episode 4 that were guiding people, that were guiding the MDR team to Woe's Hollow. Seems like they were totally different people. And they were even depicted on the new drawing, on the new painting. We even see not the Watchers that were in the severed floor that were watching the work go on, but the creepy, weird shadow twins are depicted in the painting. Here are some of them right here. Here we see the Mark creepy shadow twin and the Irving creepy shadow twin. There's also a Helly and a Dylan one in the painting as well. But this one zooms in on these two, and yeah, you can clearly see these are those shadow twin characters that we got in episode 4. But I do think these are different beings than the Watchers we saw in watching Mark and the rest of the MDR team do their work. do their work. What about you, PM? Do you think those were the same kind of shadow twin doppelgangers, or were those regular people that just happened to look similar?
So I looked closely at the heli person that was doing the looking through the computer at the macro data refinement, and she looks definitely different than the shadow twin that played heli. So I
Hmm.
think it's different people. Why they wanted them to look the same? No idea why it's important that as you're observing someone, you also look like them. But
Hmm.
I believe that they are different. Now, in the painting, the way that the faces look, like it is a body and the face looks very different than the body. It makes me think that those shadow twins didn't actually look like them. They were similar, but maybe the department that prints things had a mask printed with the face of whoever it was. And so
Uh,
it's just a person wearing a mask because that's what this looks like.
it does a bit, yeah. Like even if when you look at the neck, like if we look a little closer and you look like at the neck, it almost looks like their neck is like regular skin tone color, like a regular tan skin tone color. And
Mhm.
then you see the faces, which do look like they could be just a mask that people are wearing. So that's a good point. Those could have just been people wearing creepy masks that resembled Mark, Irving, Dylan, and Helly. That's very possible. Absolutely. Absolutely. But yeah, it definitely seemed like they were different people though. Like whoever these shadow twins were and the creepy watchers that were watching our MDR team definitely seemed like different people, as far as I could tell. Different people. All right, let's see what else we got. Scrolling down, I really don't want a flashback episode. Maybe Milchick can talk to his dad Jim and get the info that way. I mean, he could, but I just I don't want to see another endless exposition kind of dump. I feel like there's a time and place for a good exposition dump, but when it comes to a character like Milchick, I would rather see it than hear it, I guess. I would like to see a flashback episode for him because I don't know, me personally, I like these kind of flashback episodes. I don't feel like they take away from the story. I know not everybody likes them, which is totally fine. But in my opinion, I can never kind of characterize them as quote unquote filler because as long as they're serving the story, it's never filler in my opinion. And that's why I like the Cobell episode, where I know some people thought it was a little more filler, but I don't know. When I see character development like that, I have a hard time characterizing it as filler because we're learning more about this person. We're finding out where she came from, her experiences, her trauma, and all of that will inform us as the audience as to what she is going to do going forward. Because again, once you have learned a character's past, once you have learned who they are and where they come from, it becomes a lot easier to predict their movements and where they're going to go because you know where they've been. So I love these flashback episodes. I don't mind them. I like getting some extra character development on some of these characters, peel the layers back on them a little bit. I mean, it's definitely not something you want to do a ton of. Like, you certainly don't want a ton of these flashback episodes all over the place. I would say one per season is more than enough. We got two this season. We got one with Cobell and one with Gemma. But I think sticking to just like one per season where it's a full on flashback episode, learning a little bit more about one of these characters, I would be okay with that personally. But yeah, I want to learn a little bit more about Milchick. I want to see where Milchick came from. Where did he get his start? How did he come in contact with Lumen? How did they recruit him? Why is he so loyal to them? Where did Milchick originally start? What is his a real origin story, I guess? Where did you come from, Milchick? Where did you come from? Maybe we'll find out. I imagine we'll find out, even if we don't get a full-on flashback episode, like a whole episode dedicated to Milchick's backstory. Even if we don't get that, I'm hoping we at least get, something substantial where we get some kind of flashbacks in another episode, where maybe the whole episode isn't dedicated to him, but he's got a good amount of screen time in terms of delivering and telling us as the audience his full backstory. So hopefully, we can find out a little bit more about Milchick in season 3.
Mhm. Yeah,
Awesome.
even if that's so true, Lacey. Even if we just get like a little view into what he does when he's at home, at
Yeah.
his apartment or
Yeah.
his house, like what does he do? What does he eat? How does he act, right? But he is such an imposing figure that I can't imagine him living a normal life. Like sitting at the breakfast table, having his breakfast before he's about to confront the innies. I want to see what his home looks like. I imagine it's very neat.
Yeah. I imagine it's super neat, no dust anywhere. Everything's put in its proper order. Yeah, super obsessive compulsive. I imagine he is a neat freak, all of that. Yeah, I mean, that would be interesting enough just to see a little bit of a look at his home life, because even that we have no idea what it looks like. All we see is Milchick hop on his street bike and come to Lumen and hop back on his bike and go to parts unknown. We know he's not severed, so whatever he's doing, I mean, he lives a full life. But yeah, let's see a little bit about Milchick's home life. Does he have a family at home? Does he have friends? Does he have children, a wife? Like, who is this guy really? Or is he just completely living by himself, single, and his only focus, his only dedication is to Lumen? Maybe it's a little more along those lines. I feel like that'd be very sad. I mean, that'd be very, very lonely existence to only have Lumen in your life. But yeah, I would like to see something like that where we learn a little bit more about Milchick, and yeah, let's see his home life. Let's get a glimpse of his home life. Is he married? Like, who is this guy really?
Right? Like, is there a Mrs.?
Is there a Mrs. Milkshake? Is there another mini milkshake even? Like a real mini milkshake?
Yeah. I just cannot imagine him with a family, like getting home after the horrible days he's had. Like,
honey, I'm home. You'll never guess what I did at work today. I got hit with a trombone and locked in a bathroom. Like,
don't talk to me.
I can't picture it. I don't know if I can picture him in a domestic setting. Like, he's always just so Milchick. Like, he's always so Milchick. I can't picture him just going home from work, kind of kicking off his boots, sitting down, grabbing a beer, watching a football game for the night, like exhausted, frozen peas on his forehead or after he gets hit with the trombone. Like, I just can't picture him being a normal human. Something about him is just super weird. I don't know. I can't picture him being a regular dude with just a family back home. But maybe he is. Who knows?
And when did he have time to learn the choreography? That is so true.
Very true. How does he know all this choreography with this 200-piece band? Yeah, I don't know. I can't imagine him with a woman. Yeah, well, I mean, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section. And what do you think as well, PM? I mean, can you picture Milchick married with children? Like, can you picture this guy going home to a normal domesticated family? What do you guys think in the chat? Is there a possibility that Milchick is married with children, or is he just single and this is his main dedication? A little bit.
No, I'm sorry, Mr. Milchick. I just don't see him married with a family, a wife, and children. I just kind of see him living a really cool, like, bachelor life with the motorcycle, right? I'm basing it off the motorcycle, the style, right? He looks like he gets paid very well, so having a really beautiful home that is just intact, and he's never there, so it's just perfectly, everything is just perfectly placed, and just him by himself practicing, because he has a band practice tomorrow or something, practicing his dancing. And that's it. Packing, maybe meal prepping for work.
Yeah, it's just like I can't picture him waking up in the morning and making breakfast for his family and for the kids before they run out to school. And like, here, kids, don't forget your lunch money, and don't miss the bus, kind of thing. Like, just picturing him in any kind of domestic setting just feels weird. It I don't know. It just feels super fucking weird. So yeah, if I had to guess, I would say he probably doesn't have a family. But who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he goes home and he's like the best father in the world and the best husband in the world when he gets home, and he's able to just put all this shit behind him and completely compartmentalize. Like, maybe he's a totally different Milchick when he's home. I don't know, but again, it'd be nice to find out one way or the other. Does this guy have a family, or is Lumen all he lives and breathes for? I guess.
Yeah, well, when you saw Dylan, which is an interesting correlation, when you first saw Dylan, could you imagine that he actually had a wife and children at home?
No, no,
You thought he was also a single man without a
definitely.
okay. And he has a full-on wife and children, 3 children.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we could
It's
all
a,
be wrong.
no, it's a very good point. I mean, it's never good to fully judge a book by its cover. You never know what's inside that book. Yeah, because that's a very good point to bring up. The perfect kind of comparison. I would have never guessed that Dylan had a family and a wife and 3 children at home. Not one child, but 3 fucking children. Never in a million years would have guessed that Dylan's Audi was this kind of family man character. Even though he's a little bit of a fuck up, still never would have guessed that he had a family and a wife. So yeah, I mean, as even with as crazy as Milchick portrays himself, is there a possibility? I mean, could there be a Mrs. Milchick and a real mini Milchick waiting for him at home? Maybe. I don't know. I don't like Milchick enough to care. Yeah, Milchick doesn't have a whole lot of fans, and that's totally, totally cool and understandable. I mean, the guy has been a little iffy at times, to say the least. But yeah, I don't know. I've always just found him a fascinating character, and I think a big part of that is Trammell Tillman's performance as Mr. Milchick. Like, he's such a good actor. Like, Trammell Tillman is so good in this role. Like, he found the role of a lifetime here playing Milchick. It's almost like this role was perfectly tailor-made for him. I couldn't picture anybody in a million years playing Milchick other than Trammell Tillman. But I think that's where my fascination with him lies, where he's just such a good actor. And anytime I see a really good actor in a really good role, that always is an interesting character that I like to watch and see unfold. Even if it's a character that's a villain or a character I don't really like, if I like the actor in the role, I always want to see where that character is going to go, where they've been. So that's kind of how I view Milchick. I know he's kind of villain-esque. He's done some very villainy things, and he's certainly not always a good guy. Very rarely is he a good guy. But yeah, Trammell Tillman's just so good in the role. I feel like he could nail a redemption arc. Like, if you give Milchick an actual redemption arc, imagine how good Trammell Tillman's going to be at conveying that, at portraying that, at seeing him struggle, seeing him kind of come to terms with having this conflict inside of him that maybe he's finally waking up to who Lumen really is. I just feel like he would be so good with a redemption arc. I feel like he would play it so well.
I think he would. And that brings us to the question of predictions for season 3. When we last see Mr. Milchick, he is standing facing Dylan and the entire band squad, right? We know that the innies are violent. They're out for blood, and they already off Drummond. Like, Drummond is gone. They took his life. So are we thinking that they are going to unalive Mr. Milkshake?
Man, that's a good question. Yeah, chat, what do you guys think? I mean, is there a possibility that Milchick is going to get unalived in season 3? Or how is this whole marching band thing going to play out? I mean, is he ever going to even be able to get past this band? Is this band going to kind of unalive him? Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I feel like Milchick, I don't know. I feel like they can't kill him off, right? Like, they can't kill off Milchick. But then again, I never would have expected Drummond to get killed off in a very brutal, bloody manner like that either. So if nothing else, Severance definitely tends to surprise me every now and then. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going on with Milchick, but it's going to be interesting to see where season 3 starts. I know one thing, I really do not want to see a time jump. I don't want to see them skip over all of these interesting events, whether it's Mark and Helly running deeper into the halls of Lumen, whether it's Dylan right here with the marching band getting ready to face down freaking Milchick. I hope season 3 picks up right where season 2 left off. No time jumps. Like, let's see this storyline continue from A to B, right from where it ended. But I don't know. Part of me is afraid that we're going to get a little bit of a time jump when season 3 starts, and they'll go back and fill in the blanks. But as that is well and good, but it would just be a lot better if they can pick up season 3 literally right here where it left off. Like these last scenes of the last few scenes of the characters that we saw. Like this is the last time we see Dylan or Milchick, in the season. We don't see them anymore after this little shot here. I would love for the first shot of Dylan and Milchick in season 3 to be a continuation of this exact scene. Let's pick up right where we left off this time. No more time jumps. But I don't know. What about you? Do you think they'll do a time jump to start off season 3, or do you think there's a possibility they'll pick up right where they left off? With Mark and Helly still running too.
Yeah. I want them to pick up right where they left off, because if you are putting Mark and Helly in the hallway still running in this situation for Mr. Milkshake, like you have to pay it off. We can't just hear about how, weeks later, the first time, season 1, when they are in that situation, they just say, oh, weeks later, you're back on the Severance floor, you became heroes and all of this stuff. So they have done it before, where they just time jump and we don't get to see the resolution. And now that I think of it, they also did it in the previous episodes when we see James Eagan approach Elena at the Severance floor, and she says, like, you're so fucking weird, right? And he's like, I don't love my daughter, you tricked me. We never get to see the resolution of how that situation ended. Like what else went on in the conversation, and how did Helly get to come back without being reprimanded? Because according to James Eagan, she tricked him. So what was that conversation? We just skip forward. We never get to see the interaction, or if they came to terms with what he wanted Helly to do, right? She's holding a weapon against them. We never get to see if there's anything that comes of that. So they do things like that where they will show us some tension and then skip forward. Do I want them to do that? No. Do I think that they will? Yeah, probably.
They might. Yeah, they very well might. No, that's a very good point. We've seen them do that exact same thing. And even when season 1 ended and we got the beginning of season 2, same thing where, Milchick is saying it's been 5 months when really it hadn't been 5 months, but it had been a few days already. Like it was a few days that they jumped ahead forward. So no, that's actually a very good point. Yeah, that's a super good point. It's something they kind of have already done a little bit, where they'll set these things up and then scene will change and you don't quite know where the rest of that scene went. How did it conclude? How did these characters kind of leave things off in a sense? So yeah, I'm with you. As much as I don't want to see a time jump for season 3 to start, I really don't want to see one. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they do. I wouldn't be surprised if they do a time jump and we see the beginning of season 3 start off with them just in the MDR office working, and then we have to kind of fill in the pieces as we go. Like you're telling the rest of the story from there back, which can be fun sometimes, but it would be nice to see them just pick up right where season 2 left off. But I guess we'll find out. I guess we shall find out. Yeah. Let's see what we got here in the chat. What do you guys think? Are we going to get a time jump? Is it going to pick up right where it left off in season 3? Which one would you prefer? Let us know. Logical right from the end, from the season 2 finale. Got to see how Gemma is saved and what Mark S. and Helly R. does from there. Yeah, and it was pretty interesting to hear from Ben Stiller that we almost got a totally different season 2 ending. Where they were thinking about leaving season 2 ending on a massive cliffhanger with Mark standing in the middle of that hallway and us as the audience never finding out who he chooses, never finding out which way he goes. That was the original ending for season 2. And I thought that was super interesting that they even contemplated doing something like that, considering season 1 had a pretty good cliffhanger ending in terms of like what we got. It was pretty satisfying for the most part. It was one of those cliffhangers that I actually really enjoyed. But this one would have been a little bit different. I'm kind of glad that they ended up at least showing the choice that he made. But originally, Ben Stiller talked about season 2 was originally going to end right here, where we don't get to see if Mark chooses Gemma. We don't get to see if he chooses Helly. It just ends with Mark in the middle of both of them, standing between them and not deciding. And boom, that's the end of the season. And we're left to wonder, okay, which one is he going to choose? What is he going to do? That was almost how season 2 ended. But I don't know where along the lines they changed their mind, but at some point they changed their mind and thought, let's play this out. Let's show Mark choosing Helly and then them running down the severed halls, and that'll be the end of the season. But originally, we almost got another massive cliffhanger where Mark didn't even choose.
That would not have been good. And I
No.
see the Sevis in the chat agree. A lot of people have so many mixed emotions about the finale. I loved it. I love the show, but I do acknowledge that a lot of people have mixed emotions about it. And if they did that, it would have been worse. It just would have been worse. And even I would have been unsatisfied because Cold Harbor wasn't as big of a reveal as we thought it was going to be. Plus this, now you're giving us two things that are not satisfying. And I love the way that they actually showed us this interaction between Gemma, Mark, and Helly, and how emotional it was to see Gemma, who has been suffering and doesn't understand what is going on because she doesn't know what is going on, really. That's just her husband. That's all she knows. That's her husband who rescued her on the floor below. He kissed her. He was saying, if you come with me, we could continue our life. We were married. Come with me and we could continue that life that we had. So he says all of those things only to leave her for another woman. So you could only imagine how confused she must be that he saved her and promised to continue this life with her and then walks away to run the other direction with another woman. Heartbreaking, right? So I love that we got to see that.
That's another good point as well. Not only do we get that satisfying, at least that more satisfying ending of actually getting to see him make the choice, but yes, we get to see, like, imagine what's going through Gemma's mind in this moment. Like you said it perfectly. It's like, shit, she has just been through all this craziness, all this nuttiness being down there on that testing room floor to finally get rescued, only to watch what she thinks is her husband running away with another woman. It's just add insult to injury. Why don't you? That would have been, it's much more heartbreaking.
Not only that, but minutes before, her husband literally minutes before tells her, let's come with me. I'm going to take you home and we're going to continue our life. So he literally tells her that, makes a promise, a minute, and then the next minute he's running away with another woman. Super confusing, super heartbreaking. So I do like that they showed us this. Yeah. And also for Helly, she never gave up. You could see that she's running, right? She got there right on time, that she never gave up. She was looking for Mark. She found him. She shows up at the right time, right at the perfect time, and he chooses her. And I don't think that if she would not have been standing there, Mark probably would have done, quote unquote, the right thing and gone with Gemma. But seeing Helly there, of course, he chose Helly.
Yeah, I think so. I think if she did not show up when she did, yeah, he might have probably just went right out that door with Gemma. I mean, that was the plan. That was the original plan, to get Gemma to safety. It just would have made sense. But yeah, I think Helly showed up at the perfect time to get any Mark to kind of remember, like, wait a minute. I have no feelings or no attachment for this woman. This might be my Audi's wife, but I have no feelings for her. I don't know her. The person I love is right here behind me. So yeah, I mean, and I feel like, and I mentioned this in my review, but we all knew that this choice was coming. It always was going to end with, or it was always going to lead to Mark having to make a choice between Helly and Gemma. We knew that was coming. And for me, I kind of always thought it would play out like this, where whichever Mark was making that choice would determine what the choice was going to be. If this is any Mark, he's always going to choose Helly. If it was outie Mark, he would not have hesitated to go right out that door with Gemma. And in this moment, yeah, just happened to be any Mark who got to make the final decision. And the fact that he even contemplated, even for a second, shows you, his character and some of his morals, where I do think he is a little bit of a better person than Outie Mark is at times, or at least a purer person, a little bit more pure than Outie Mark is, where Outie Mark would not have even hesitated. He wouldn't even have looked back at Helly. He would have just went right out the door, which makes sense. He doesn't really have any connection to Helly. He has no context there. But then again, Mark has no context or connection to Gemma either. I mean, yes, he knows Miss Casey, but this is his Outie's wife, and he knows that. But he still had to stop and think about it. He still had to stop and think, okay, what should I do here in this moment? And ultimately, he went with his heart and went with the woman that he loved. Mm-hmm. But I feel like the choice was always going to come down to which Mark made the choice. Outie Mark's always going to go with Gemma. Any Mark's always going to go with Helly. And that's probably how it's going to play out.
Did we say, I don't recall us deciding, Sevis in the chat, answer the question, and also any Jeremy, if you were Mark, who do you choose? Do you choose Gemma or do you choose Helly?
Man. Yeah, chat. Let us know. What do you guys think? If you are Mark in that scene, who do you guys choose in the chat? Do you choose Gemma or do you choose Helly? That's a very good question, PM. Man, I mean, now I did say in the last stream in terms of which couple I prefer, which couple I like better. And that is any Mark and Helly. Me personally, I like any Mark and Helly a little bit more than I like Outie Mark and Gemma. I think I like Helly and Gemma probably equally, but I like any Mark better than Outie Mark. I feel like any Mark is a better person than Outie Mark is. He's not as corrupted. He's not as world weary, not as damaged, not as traumatized, and he just seems like he still has a pure kind of spirit about him, where Outie Mark doesn't really seem to have that same vibe about him. I mean, again, any Mark and Helly are definitely my favorite couple out of those two, but who would I choose if I was Mark? Yeah, Helly. I would choose Helly. I think I would choose Helly. If I was Mark in that moment, I probably would have chosen Helly too. Yeah. What about you? Which way do you go if you're Mark?
Part of me is thinking strategy, right? I feel like I would have told Helly, we know you're okay because you're Elena Eagan. You're going to be okay. Like, I will know where your body is at all times because you are the CEO of this company. You're not going to disappear. I'm not going to be as okay as you are. So I'm going to choose Gemma and then find a way to get to you. Like, I will find you again, Helly, right? But first, I need to be able to be outside and I need to have leverage. I need to tell Mark Outie, hey, listen, I got your girl. Now we have to go get mine. We know where she's located. She can't really go missing, right? She's very famous, Elena Eagan. So now that I have your wife, you need to help me get to Helly. And then we have more of an opportunity to actually have a life together, other than running around the hallways with nowhere to go and making people more upset than they already are and risking our life. We know that Helly's going to be okay. She's Elena Eagan. But at that point, if I was Helly too, I would have told Mark, you have to go with Gemma. Look for me. And I would have pushed him out the door, because right now she's risking his life and she knows that she's going to end up being fine one way or another. Even more so because James Egan told her, I like you. I don't like my daughter.
Yes.
So she knows I probably have a good chance of being okay, Mark. Go with Gemma,
Yeah. No, that's a good point. That is a good point. Like you said, I mean, there's nothing he can do to help Helly from the severed floor. But if he leaves and gets out, maybe there's something he can do. Maybe there's some kind of plan he can come up with where at least there's a little bit of hope. And Gemma gets saved too. You kind of get to kill two birds with one stone in a sense. So no, that's a good point that you bring up. Yeah, it's tough. Yeah, it's tough. And which Mark? I mean, for argument's sake, let's say fully reintegrated Mark, a Mark that has feelings for both Gemma and Helly. He has feelings for both. Which one do you pick? I mean, if you're in Mark's shoes, which one do you pick, Gemma or Helly? And yeah, for me, it's Helly. It is Helly. I just like Helly and any Mark a little bit better than I like Outie Mark and Gemma. Not that I don't like Outie Mark and Gemma, I like them too, but I like any Mark and Helly just a little bit more, just a tiny bit, just a tiny bit. Right, PM. I think the question should be, what should Helly have done? Yeah, well, I think Helly. I mean, the thing with Helly is, like she's not afraid of sacrifice. I feel like she, if the situation calls for it, I feel like Helly would be more than willing to sacrifice herself for her friends, for Mark, for maybe even Gemma, even like at times. Like Helly does seem like that kind of pure kind of character as well. But yeah, I think Helly's always going to choose any Mark as well, just like any Mark's always going to choose Helly.
Yeah, but I think what Lacey is referring to is she's not really choosing any Mark because she's putting him in danger.
True.
She's choosing just, this idea of let's run away together, but she's not thinking, I'm putting him in danger. I'm probably going to be okay.
Yeah.
He's going to upset so many people. Not only is he going to upset Lumen, but also outside Mark and Cobell, who could potentially help him. So if you truly love someone, don't you want them to be okay? I
Yes.
would have pushed them out the door and been like, I'm gonna be fine. Go out the door, run away, hide. I'll find you. It could
I'll
have been the
find
other
you.
way around.
Yeah.
Hallie could have been like, I will find a way to find you. But first, you have to be okay so I could find you, right?
Yes. And honestly, like the way season 2 ended off, like there actually could have been a possibility for Helly to find Mark too. Now that I think about it, the way that James Eagan is kind of warming up to Helly and straight up telling him, I don't love my daughter. I don't see Kier in her anymore. And I mentioned this in my season 3 predictions video that I wouldn't be too surprised if in season 3 we see that James Eagan is actively trying to replace Helena with Helly on the outside. Like maybe he wants Helly to become Helena now, like to become his real daughter on the outside. That way Helly's not stuck on the severed floor. That is something she can use to her advantage. So in that scenario, yeah, it probably would make the most amount of sense for Mark to just leave with Gemma. Go, make sure you're safe. I'll find you. I think you're right. I think you guys are both right in that sense. That probably would have been the best bet for them, or at least the best chance they would have had for finding something real on the outside, or at least finding each other again at some point somewhere. Get Mark to safety. Let Helly. Helly's always going to be safe because she's the daughter of James Eagan, so they're never going to really harm her. Worst they're going to do is switch her over back to her Outie. But with James Eagan cozying up more and more to Helly and not Helena, again, I could totally see James wanting Helly to take over as Helena on the outside. And that's something she could very much use to her advantage if she plays it right.
Exactly. Then she could just be like, I'll be your CEO. I want Mark.
Boom.
And what does Lumen do? Lumen is known for that. Mark wants Helly. We're giving him Helly. Helly wants Mark. We're giving her Mark. So they have a history of doing this. It would be something that they could work out.
I think
And
so.
I get what some of the Sevis are saying. Also, the Big Heck is a big romantic. And I do get that. Like, just spending the last minutes that you possibly have together is very romantic. And
Yeah.
Mark did say, when Helly did actually tell him, maybe you want to do this. Mark did said, but I want to live with you, right? So that was
Yes.
something that he did say. So there's precedence for that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely. Yeah, and that was such an interesting scene because you never ever really hear any Mark and Helen and Helly kind of just like directly talk like that to each other. Like it's always like it's unspoken between Helly and Mark, where they kind of both just know where each other stands, but it's always like an unspoken kind of love. But here they just completely address it right out in the open. At least you'll have a chance at living. And of course he says, yeah, but I want to live with you. And she goes, but I'm her, Mark. This was a great sequence as well. I really enjoyed this scene. Just phenomenal. Again, Adam Scott has really impressed me in this show. Like ever since season 1, he has super impressed me with how much range he has as an actor. Someone that has predominantly always been kind of known for, comedic roles and small comedy roles on sitcoms and stuff. I mean, he's just absolutely chewing up every single scene that he is in as Mark or Outie Mark when he's on this series. So I can't give the guy enough credit. He's really crafted a phenomenal character here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Absolutely phenomenal. But yeah, good stuff. Good stuff, Lacey, as well. Death or live for as long as it might let you. Yeah. And again, I in some on some instance, I kind of at least appreciate or enjoy, at least appreciate the kind of beauty of what Helly and Mark were doing at the end of season 2 in terms of, the way that they explain it in the inside the episode as well, where it's kind of explained as, they don't know if they're only going to have a few more minutes together, but they know that it's a few more minutes that they wouldn't have had. So I get the kind of beauty, the fleeting beauty in that, where they love each other so much and they feel even if them running down the Severance Hall only buys them 10 more minutes, it's 10 minutes that they wouldn't have had otherwise. So I get the kind of, the fleeting beauty in that concept, but yeah. I like what you guys are saying as well in terms of fucking pushing Mark right out the door and then, coming up with another plan from there once Mark's safe, for sure. For sure. But yeah, I don't know. Season 3 is going to be a wild ride, guys. Season 3 is going to be a wild ride. And yeah, I don't know. I cannot wait to see where this thing goes. I cannot wait to see where season 3 goes. I feel like they've left us in an interesting place where they can probably go to many different paths in terms of like story-wise. There's so many different places they could go. But in terms of big predictions for season 3, probably my biggest prediction is I definitely think that James Eagan is going to take a much deeper interest in Helly. And again, I would not be surprised if James tries to get Helly to become the actual real Helena on the outside. That's probably my biggest prediction for season 3. Helly becomes the new Helena. But yeah, what about you, PM? Final predictions for season 3? Or hopes, even if not predictions? Anything you hope to see?
Hope. My biggest hope is that Mr. Milkshake can finagle a way to keep his job. I do not want him losing his job, although right now, who wouldn't fire him? Even if I was, Lumen, I love him. But at this point, I mean, he's messed up pretty bad. But that is my biggest hope. Hopefully he doesn't get fired or slaughtered.
Or slaughtered or worse. Yeah. I mean, I am a little worried about Milkshake. I'm not going to lie. I mean, we saw Cobell get fired for far less than what's happened under his watch. So yeah, how the hell is he going to keep his job? How is he going to talk his way out of this one? Is Lumen going to forgive him this time? All of these big blunders that have happened under his watch. Yeah, Milkshake is in a precarious spot where Lumen is concerned. So that'll be interesting. But yeah, season 3, guys, of course, hopefully we're not going to have to wait a crazy long time for season 3. I know Ben Stiller has recently come out and said we're not going to have to wait 3 years for season 3 like we had to wait for season 2. Hopefully, I imagine it'll probably at least be a year, maybe a year and a half wait. So hopefully we'll get season 3 of Severance, maybe summer 2026. Hopefully that would be like the best case scenario. But either way, Cannot wait to see where the rest of this story goes from here. To our From fans, we also got some interesting information. From is beginning their filming this summer. 100% season 4 of From is starting their filming this summer in Nova Scotia, which makes sense. A lot of us kind of predicted that was when they were going to start filming anyway, because seems like they just did not want to do another winter shoot in Nova Scotia, which is absolutely brutal filming in winter at that place at that time of year. So now we know From season 4 starting their filming this summer, which will give us season 4 probably spring or summertime 2026, the latest, I'm thinking. So From is on its way. And with From starting its filming in the next few months, we will definitely be doing some more From content here on the channel. We had a really From stream the other week when we had the awesome Man in Yellow himself come on and hang out for a little bit. Definitely will have him on again in the future at some point. And yeah, we'll probably definitely find some time to do some From streams here and there between now and then. And of course, The Last of Us Season 2 is just around the corner now. Guys, if you have not seen The Last of Us Season 1, definitely get out there, check out the first season of The Last of Us. It is really good. It doesn't matter if you know about the game or if you played the game or not. It's a good show that stands on its own merit, even if you don't know anything about the game that it's based on. So I would highly recommend checking out The Last of Us Season 1, because we will be most likely covering all of The Last of Us Season 2 right here on the channel. And Season 2 starts April 13th, so you guys still have plenty of time to catch up on Season 1. So check out Last of Us if you haven't already. And of course, the Severance streams will be continuing. PM and I will be live again this Thursday, most likely again. We'll probably be sticking to it, maybe like a Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday schedule for now. And this Thursday, we are going to be diving into all things Severance cults. We are going to dive into all of the cultish and cult-like aspects that surround Lumon, that are weaved in and out of Lumon and the Eagan family. Of course, there are tons of similarities and references to cults and that cult-like mentality on Severance. So we're going to be diving into all things cults this Thursday right here on the channel, diving into all things Lumon Severance. And yes, I will definitely check out Black Mirror at some point. I've been meaning to watch that for a very long time. I hear nothing but good things about it. So I will definitely at some point get a chance to watch Black Mirror. And when I do eventually watch it, yeah, maybe that's something we can talk about during at the end of one of our Severance streams or something. Definitely. But until next time, big thank you to each and every one of you for joining us on this fine Tuesday evening. And of course, huge thank you to my wonderful co-host, PM Philosophy. If you guys have not subscribed to PM's channel yet, definitely give her a sub. She also has some really good Severance content on her channel. You guys should definitely check out her Severance videos. They're really good. And thank you for joining me.
Oh, thank you for having me. And thank you, Sevis. It's so much fun always. Love all of your theories. And yeah, join us for Severance Cult Day on Thursday. It's going to be so much fun because most of the cult stuff we really got from you. You guys keep talking cult, so we're going to give you cult.
We are going to dive into all of the cult-like aspects surrounding Severance, whether it's Kier, Lumon, the Eagans, Rickon himself, and all of his weird cult-like followers. We are going to dive into all of the cult-like aspects surrounding Severance, and that should be pretty fun. And I'm sure we'll probably also talk about Season 3 predictions then as well. And of course, we're also planning a Severance trivia stream that we're probably going to do, if not this week, next week. And we definitely want to set that one up proper. We had a blast when we did the From trivia stream. It was so much fun diving into some trivia behind these shows, getting some questions that are easy and some questions that only the most die-hard Severance fans will know. So definitely keep those Severance details fresh in your mind, because we're going to have a very fun Severance trivia stream coming up very soon as well, along with plenty of other stuff that we're going to be planning between now and when The Last of Us eventually starts. So as long as people want to talk Severance, we will be here talking Severance with each and every one of you. But until next time, stay safe out there in this crazy world. Keep those tinfoil hats on, folks, and I will see you on the next one. Peace.